What's going on, everyone? It's black magic here. We've got something amazing for you today. What if Salazar Slytherin's ghost woke in chamber age 5 and trained Harry to destroy Dumbledore's Britain real quick? If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join thousands of story lovers and hit that subscribe button. Alright, story time. Chapter 1, The Chamber's Awakening. Harry Potter ran as fast as his 5-year-old legs could carry him. The sound of Dudley and his friends shouting grew fainter as he darted between trees in the small wooded area at the edge of the park. His glasses slipped down his nose, and his oversized hand-me-downs flapped around his skinny frame. "We're gonna get you, freak." Dudley's voice echoed from somewhere behind him. Harry's heart pounded. He needed a place to hide, somewhere they'd never find him. He dove behind a thick cluster of bushes and crawled deeper until he reached a strange depression in the ground partially hidden by roots and moss. Without thinking, he pressed his hand against the soil, desperate for any kind of shelter. A small hiss escaped his lips, not from pain, but from fear, and the ground shifted beneath him. Harry tumbled forward into darkness, his scream cut short as he slid down what felt like a smooth stone tunnel. The entrance sealed itself behind him, leaving Dudley and his gang confused, staring at empty bushes. The darkness swallowed Harry completely as he slid down the tunnel, unable to stop. Just as panic threatened to overwhelm him, the tunnel leveled out, and he tumbled onto a cold stone floor. Weak greenish light slowly filled the chamber, emanating from strange crystalline formations in the walls. "Hello?" Harry called out, his voice small and trembling. "Is anyone here?" The chamber remained silent. Gathering his courage, Harry stood up and took in his surroundings. He stood in a circular room with stone walls covered in carvings of serpents. The floor beneath him was smooth marble, and in the center sat a pedestal with what looked like a silver basin. Curious, Harry whispered to himself, a habit developed from long hours alone in his cupboard. He approached the pedestal cautiously. The basin contained clear water that glowed with the same greenish light as the crystals. Harry peered into it, seeing his own reflection, unruly black hair, bright green eyes, the lightning scar on his forehead. "A child?" A voice echoed through the chamber, causing Harry to jump back. "A child finds my sanctuary after 1,000 years?" Harry spun around, searching for the source of the voice. "Who's there?" "I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to be here. I was just hiding." A shimmer appeared in the air before him, gradually taking the form of a tall, imposing man with a long beard and robes embroidered with serpents. His form was translucent, a ghost, but somehow more substantial than the ghosts Harry would later encounter at Hogwarts. "You speak my tongue, boy," the ghost said, circling Harry with narrowed eyes. Harry blinked in confusion. "I'm speaking normal English, sir." The ghost paused, then laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the chamber walls. "No, child. You are speaking the language of serpents. Parseltongue. Interesting." Only then did Harry notice the slight hissing quality to their conversation. "I didn't know I was doing that. What is your name, serpent speaker?" The ghost loomed closer. "Harry Potter, sir." The ghost froze. "Potter? Not a name from the noble houses I know." His eyes fixed on Harry's forehead. "That scar, magical. Recent. Tell me, child, what year is it?" "It's 1985, sir." The ghost's expression darkened. "Nearly 1,000 years since my time. I am Salazar Slytherin, founder of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and you, Harry Potter, have awakened me from my long slumber." Harry's eyes widened. Even at 5, he recognized something momentous was happening. "Magic is real?" "Aunt Petunia says it's not. She gets angry when I mention anything strange." Slytherin's eyes narrowed. "Aunt Petunia? Where are your parents, boy?" "They died in a car crash when I was a baby. That's how I got this." Harry pointed to his scar. "A car crash?" Slytherin spat. Nonsense. That mark reeks of dark magic. Someone has lied to you. He moved closer, his ghostly hand passing through Harry's forehead, causing the boy to shiver. Your mind holds many secrets, child. Will you permit me to see them? Harry hesitated, then nodded. Will it hurt? No, Slytherin replied. Close your eyes. Harry did as instructed. Immediately, memories flooded through him, his cupboard under the stairs, Aunt Petunia screaming, Uncle Vernon's purple face, Dudley's cruel games, strange occurrences when Harry was scared or angry. Slytherin sifted through them all, his presence cool and calculating in Harry's mind. When it ended, Harry opened his eyes to see Slytherin's ghost practically vibrating with rage. Muggles, he hissed. Abusing a wizarding child. And not just any child, you, Harry Potter, are apparently famous in the wizarding world. I am? Harry asked, bewildered. According to fragments I gathered from your subconscious. Your parents were murdered by a dark wizard called Voldemort, who then tried to kill you but somehow failed. The scar is his mark. Slytherin circled the chamber. Someone named Dumbledore placed you with these relatives. He spat the word like poison. Dumbledore? Harry repeated. The current headmaster of Hogwarts, it seems. His manipulations are written all over your situation. Slytherin's ghostly face hardened. This confirms my worst fears about what would become of magical Britain after my death. Harry sat on the cold floor, overwhelmed. I don't understand any of this. Slytherin's expression softened slightly. No, I suppose you wouldn't. Those Muggle relatives have kept you ignorant of your heritage. He seemed to make a decision. Harry Potter, how would you like to learn the truth about who you really are? About magic, Hogwarts, and your place in the wizarding world? Harry's eyes lit up. Yes, please. Good. But first, Slytherin waved his translucent hand, and the chamber grew warmer. A small cot appeared in the corner with blankets and a pillow. You cannot stay here permanently, but I can make it comfortable when you visit. How did you do that? Harry asked, amazed. This chamber is bound to my will, even in death. It is a fragment of my magic, preserved through the ages. Slytherin glided toward the basin. Come, Harry. It's time for your first lesson. Harry approached cautiously. Magic, Slytherin began, flows through your veins. It is not something you do, it is something you are. The wands and incantations wizards use are merely tools to focus what already exists within you. He instructed Harry to place his hands over the basin. Feel your magic. It responds to emotion and intent more than words. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating. He thought about all the strange things that happened around him, how he'd ended up on the school roof while running from Dudley, how his hair had regrown overnight after Aunt Petunia cut it. A tingling sensation spread from his chest to his fingertips. The water in the basin rippled, then rose in a small column before his amazed eyes. Good, Slytherin nodded approvingly. Very good for a first attempt. Harry beamed with pride, perhaps the first time in his young life he'd received praise. You must return to those Muggles before you're missed, Slytherin said reluctantly. But you can return here. The entrance will recognize you now. How do I find it again? Harry asked anxiously. Seek the spot where you entered and speak to the earth in Parseltongue. Say, open, and the way will reveal itself. Slytherin guided Harry toward a different tunnel. This will lead you back near where you entered. Go now, but return tomorrow if you can. Harry nodded eagerly. I will. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia hardly notice when I'm gone anyway. As Harry made his way up the tunnel, Slytherin called after him, Tell no one what you've discovered, Harry Potter. Not until you're ready. Not until I've taught you enough to protect yourself. Harry emerged from behind the same bushes he'd hidden behind, blinking in the late afternoon sunlight. The park was empty now, Dudley and his gang had given up and gone home. With a mixture of excitement and disbelief, Harry headed back to Privet Drive, careful to arrive before dinner so his absence wouldn't be remarked upon. That night, curled up in his cupboard, Harry whispered to himself in Parseltongue, practicing the strange language and marveling at how natural it felt. For the first time in his memory, he fell asleep with hope burning in his chest. True to his word, Harry returned the next day, and the day after that. Each time, Slytherin taught him something new: the history of the magical world, the basics of potion-making using simple ingredients Harry could secretly gather, and most importantly, how to access and control his innate magic. Most wizarding children cannot perform controlled magic without a wand, Slytherin explained during their fourth meeting. But you, Harry, have advantages they do not. What advantages? Harry asked, sitting cross-legged on the chamber floor. First, you've begun training younger than most. Second, necessity: your life with those muggles has forced your magic to manifest for protection. And third. Slytherin paused, studying Harry carefully. There is something unique about you. Your connection to the wizard who gave you that scar has left traces of power. Harry absorbed this information solemnly. Over the weeks that followed, he learned to channel his magic deliberately. Small feats at first: levitating pebbles, creating light, warming himself when the chamber grew cold. As summer turned to autumn, Harry began his first year of primary school. The Dursleys had reluctantly purchased him the required supplies, though Dudley's hand-me-down uniform hung from his small frame. Harry's newfound control over his magic manifested in subtle ways. When Dudley and his friends chased him, he could make them trip without touching them. When his teacher criticized his messy handwriting, the ink mysteriously rearranged itself into perfect letters after she walked away. Careful, Slytherin warned when Harry proudly recounted these incidents. The Ministry of Magic monitors underage wizardry. Only here, in my chamber, are you shielded from their detection. Why would they care if I use magic? Harry asked. Slytherin's expression darkened. Control, Harry. The Ministry fears what it cannot control. They restrict magic to maintain their power over wizarding society. It is one of many corruptions that have festered since my time. As the months passed, Slytherin shared more of his history with Harry: how he and the other three founders built Hogwarts, their vision for magical education, and the disagreements that eventually drove them apart. History paints me as a villain, Slytherin said bitterly. They claim I hated Muggle-born wizards, that I wanted only pure-blooded students at Hogwarts. Did you? Harry asked directly. Slytherin regarded him thoughtfully. I feared Muggles, Harry. In my time, they hunted and burned witches and wizards. I feared what would happen if Muggle-born students revealed our world to their families. He sighed, a ghostly sound that echoed through the chamber. But hate? No. Magic is magic, regardless of blood. My concerns were for safety, not purity. By the time Harry turned 6, he spent every possible moment in the chamber. He discovered that if he concentrated hard enough while inside, he could summon certain objects from the outside world: books from the school library, food from the Dursleys' kitchen, even clothing that fit him properly, though these items would disappear if he tried to remove them from the chamber. This is advanced magic, Harry, Slytherin noted with approval. You're progressing faster than I anticipated. The chamber itself changed over time, adapting to Harry's needs. The single cot expanded into a comfortable bed. Bookshelves appeared, filled with ancient texts on magical theory. A small practice area formed where Harry could safely test more volatile spells. On Harry's 7th birthday, which the Dursleys didn't acknowledge, Slytherin presented him with a special gift. It is time you learned more about your parents and the circumstances of their deaths, the ghost announced. Step into the basin. Harry approached the silver basin, which had filled with a swirling, silvery substance. These are memories, Harry. Some are fragments I've collected from your own mind, others are magical records preserved within this chamber. Touch the surface and you will experience them. With trepidation, Harry reached out. The moment his fingers touched the silvery surface, he was pulled into a whirlwind of images and sounds. He saw a young couple, a man with unruly black hair like his own and a woman with startlingly green eyes, laughing as they held a baby. He witnessed snippets of a wizarding war, glimpsed a snake-faced man who could only be Voldemort. He saw an old man with a long white beard and half-moon spectacles placing a bundle on the doorstep of number 4, Privet Drive. "That's Dumbledore," Slytherin's voice echoed in the memory. "Watch closely, Harry." The memory continued. Dumbledore cast spells around the house, wards of some kind, and then spoke to a stern-looking woman. "The blood protection through his aunt will keep him safe from Voldemort's followers. And being raised away from his fame will be better for the boy. When the time comes, he'll be ready to fulfill his destiny." The memory shifted again, showing Dumbledore in an office, speaking to someone Harry couldn't see. "The prophecy is clear. When Voldemort returns, and he will return, Harry Potter must be prepared to face him. The boy must be moldable, humble. Living with his Muggle relatives ensures he won't develop an inflated sense of importance." When Harry finally emerged from the basin, tears streamed down his face. "He knew," he whispered. "Dumbledore knew they'd treat me badly." "Yes," Slytherin confirmed grimly. "He placed you there deliberately, not for your protection, but to shape you into a weapon. The prophecy he mentioned suggests you're destined to confront this Voldemort again." Harry wiped his tears away, anger replacing grief. "He left me there like a package. He never checked on me. Dumbledore plays a long game, Harry. He sacrifices people, for what he considers the greater good." Slytherin's ghost drifted closer. "But we can disrupt his plans. I can teach you to be more than his pawn." From that day forward, Harry's training intensified. Slytherin pushed him harder, focusing not just on magical control but also strategy, magical theory, and the politics of wizarding Britain. By age 8, Harry could perform magic that would impress even adult wizards. He mastered wandless levitation, summoning, simple transfiguration, and even basic shield charms. His progress with Parseltongue expanded to include communication with actual snakes, garden serpents he secretly befriended and brought to the chamber. The Dursleys noticed changes in Harry but couldn't identify their cause. He no longer flinched when Vernon shouted. He met Petunia's critical gaze steadily. He avoided Dudley's gang with uncanny success. They attributed it to freakishness and increased their efforts to stamp it out of him, but Harry endured their treatment with new resilience, knowing it was temporary. In the summer before Harry's 9th birthday, Slytherin decided it was time for a significant test of Harry's abilities. "You've mastered control," the ghost said. "Now we must work on power. Today, you will attempt something few adult wizards can accomplish. You will create fire and maintain it without burning yourself." Harry stood in the practice area, concentrating. Following Slytherin's instructions, he focused on the air between his palms, visualizing heat and light. Intent, Harry. Magic responds to will more than words. Sweat beaded on Harry's forehead as he concentrated. A tiny spark appeared between his hands, flickered, and died. Again and again he tried, growing more frustrated with each failure. "You're forcing it," Slytherin observed. "Magic doesn't respond well to force. Think of it as persuasion rather than command." Harry took a deep breath, relaxed his shoulders, and tried again. This time, instead of demanding fire, he invited warmth. The spark that appeared grew steadily into a small flame hovering between his palms. "Excellent." Slytherin circled around him. "Now, shape it. Give it form." With careful concentration, Harry molded the flame, stretching it into a serpentine shape that coiled and moved with his thoughts. Unknown to Harry, the surge of magical energy triggered monitoring charms placed around Privet Drive. In his office at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore frowned at a silver instrument that had begun emitting puffs of smoke. "Curious," he murmured. "The boy's accidental magic is stronger than expected." He made a note to have Arabella Figg increase her surveillance but otherwise dismissed it as a sign of Harry's magical development. Meanwhile, in the chamber, Harry collapsed in exhaustion after maintaining the fire serpent for nearly 5 minutes. "I did it," he gasped, grinning despite his fatigue. "You did," Slytherin agreed. "And each time will become easier. Your magical pathways are developing, like muscles that strengthen with use." As Harry recovered his strength, Slytherin floated to the basin. "There is something else I must show you today. Something about your scar." Harry touched the lightning bolt on his forehead. "What about it?" "I've been analyzing its magical signature. It's not merely a cursed scar, Harry. It contains a fragment of Voldemort himself." Harry recoiled. "What? How?" "It's ancient, forbidden magic called a Horcrux, a container for a piece of soul, created through murder. I believe Voldemort, intentionally or not, transferred a fragment of his soul to you when his killing curse rebounded." Horror dawned on Harry's face. "You mean, part of him is inside me?" "Yes. And I suspect Dumbledore knows this." Slytherin's expression turned calculating. "This connection explains your Parseltongue ability. It's not naturally yours, but comes from the fragment. It also suggests why Dumbledore placed you with abusive muggles. He's raising you like a pig for slaughter." "What do you mean?" "The prophecy. Dumbledore believes you must die to truly defeat Voldemort, taking the soul fragment with you." Harry's face drained of color. "He wants me to die. He would call it sacrifice for the greater good." Slytherin's voice dripped with contempt. "But we will find another way, Harry. I promise you this." For the next year, alongside Harry's magical training, Slytherin researched methods to remove the Horcrux. They pored over ancient texts preserved in the chamber, some written in languages even Slytherin struggled to translate. Harry's 9th birthday came and went. His control over magic continued to improve, and his knowledge of wizarding history and politics expanded dramatically. Slytherin taught him about the Sacred 28, the supposedly pure-blooded families that held much of wizarding Britain's power, and the corruption within the Ministry of Magic. "Knowledge is power, Harry," Slytherin reminded him often. "These families and institutions will underestimate you. Let them. Observe everything, reveal little." As Harry approached his 10th birthday, Slytherin made a breakthrough in his Horcrux research. "I found a ritual," he announced one evening. "It's complex and will require specific ingredients, but I believe it can remove the soul fragment without harming you." "What do we need?" Harry asked eagerly. "Items we cannot easily acquire until you enter the wizarding world properly," Slytherin admitted. "Phoenix tears, basilisk venom, and a few rare potion ingredients. We must wait until you receive your Hogwarts letter." Harry nodded, disappointed but understanding. "Just one more year then. In the meantime, there's something important we must address." Slytherin guided Harry to the basin. "Your Hogwarts acceptance will arrive on your 11th birthday. We must prepare for Dumbledore's inevitable involvement." The silvery substance in the basin swirled as Slytherin continued. "When the letter comes, someone from Hogwarts will likely escort you to purchase school supplies in Diagon Alley. Dumbledore will want to control this introduction to the wizarding world." "What should I do?" Harry asked. "Play the role he expects, an ignorant, wide-eyed boy grateful for rescue from his Muggle relatives. React with appropriate amazement to magic. Ask questions a Muggle-raised child would ask." Slytherin's ghost paced the chamber. "Meanwhile, observe everything. Note who speaks to you, who avoids you, how people react to your name." "I'll be spying," Harry realized. "Precisely. Intelligence gathering is crucial. Dumbledore has had years to position his pieces. We must learn the board before we can play." As his 10th birthday approached, Harry asked a question that had been bothering him. "Why do you care what happens to me? Why help me stand against Dumbledore?" Slytherin considered Harry for a long moment before answering. "Initially, I saw you as an opportunity, a powerful young wizard I could mold to carry on my legacy and correct historical wrongs. But now, the ghost's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Now I see a child who deserves better than to be sacrificed for an old man's machinations. Harry nodded, understanding the unspoken sentiment. After 5 years together, they had developed a relationship that transcended mere teacher and student. Slytherin would never admit to paternal feelings, such emotional displays weren't in his nature, but his dedication to Harry's well-being spoke volumes. On Harry's 10th birthday, Slytherin presented him with knowledge rather than a physical gift, the truth about Harry's family heritage. The Potters, he explained, were an ancient wizarding family with ties to Godric Gryffindor himself. Your father's line stretches back centuries. He paused significantly. But your mother's lineage, while ostensibly Muggle, contains a remarkable secret. Harry leaned forward eagerly. I've analyzed the magical signature in your blood, Harry. There are traces that suggest your mother's family, many generations back, may have descended from my own bloodline. You think I'm related to you? Harry gasped. Distantly, yes. The Evans family likely descended from a squib branch, magical people who couldn't access their powers. Over generations, they lived as Muggles, until magic manifested strongly again in your mother. Slytherin's ghost seemed genuinely pleased. It explains your natural affinity for my chamber and your exceptional magical potential. This revelation filled Harry with a strange pride. Not because of any notion of blood purity, Slytherin had thoroughly dispelled such prejudices in their years together, but because it represented a connection, a belonging he'd never experienced. Does this make me your heir? Harry asked. In magic, if not in direct blood, Slytherin confirmed. And that, Harry, will give us an advantage Dumbledore cannot anticipate. The months leading up to Harry's 11th birthday passed in intense preparation. Slytherin coached Harry on every aspect of his impending introduction to the wizarding world, from wand selection to appropriate behavior in various magical establishments. Your wand will be especially significant, Slytherin emphasized. The wand chooses the wizard, and yours may reveal things about your potential. Whatever wand selects you, accept it without revealing too much knowledge. As July 1991 arrived, anticipation built in both Harry and his spectral mentor. They knew Harry's letter would arrive on his birthday, and with it, the beginning of their carefully orchestrated plan. On the morning of July 31st, Harry woke early in his cupboard under the stairs. Today was the day everything would change. He dressed quickly in Dudley's oversized clothes, mentally reviewing Slytherin's instructions. Breakfast at the Dursleys proceeded as usual. Dudley complained about his portion, Vernon grumbled about work, and Petunia gossiped about neighbors. None acknowledged Harry's birthday. The mail arrived with a clatter through the slot. Vernon ordered Harry to get it. Among the bills and postcards lay a thick envelope of yellowish parchment addressed in emerald green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. Harry stared at it, heart pounding. Despite knowing it would come, seeing his cupboard specifically addressed sent a chill down his spine. The wizarding world had been watching him all along, knowing his conditions yet doing nothing. Remembering his role, Harry returned to the kitchen and handed Uncle Vernon the regular mail, subtly slipping his Hogwarts letter into his oversized pants pocket. He'd read it later, in private, though he already knew its contents thanks to Slytherin's preparation. The day passed agonizingly slowly. Harry waited for the right moment to discover his letter where the Dursleys would see. Slytherin had predicted their reaction, denial, panic, attempts to prevent Harry from learning about magic. Sure enough, when Harry finally revealed the letter at dinner, Uncle Vernon's face cycled through multiple shades of red and purple. Who'd be writing to you? He sneered, snatching the letter. His expression changed instantly upon seeing the Hogwarts seal. What followed was exactly as Slytherin had predicted, Vernon and Petunia panicking, Dudley confused, and Harry pretending ignorance while secretly observing everything. The Dursleys' reaction confirmed what Harry had long suspected. They knew about magic, about Hogwarts, about his parents' true fate. Vernon tore up the letter and forbade Harry from reading it. The next day, more letters arrived. Vernon nailed the mail slot shut. Letters came down the chimney, through windows, even inside eggs delivered by the confused milkman. The Dursleys' increasingly desperate measures culminated in a frantic flight to a remote shack on a tiny island. As midnight approached on his birthday, Harry sat alone on the dusty floor of the shack, drawing a birthday cake in the dirt. According to Slytherin, Dumbledore would send someone to find him when the letters failed to reach him. Right on cue, a tremendous boom shook the door of the shack. Boom! The door shuddered again under powerful blows. Crash! The door splintered off its hinges, and an enormous figure filled the doorway. "Sorry 'bout that," the giant said, picking up the door and fitting it back into its frame. "He's exactly as I predicted," Slytherin's voice whispered in Harry's mind. They had discovered months ago that their mental connection extended beyond the chamber, allowing limited communication. Hagrid, for Harry knew the half-giant's name and role from Slytherin's information, introduced himself and presented Harry with a slightly squashed birthday cake. Playing his part perfectly, Harry asked innocent questions about Hogwarts, his parents, and the wizarding world, reacting with appropriate surprise and wonder. The next morning, Hagrid took Harry to Diagon Alley. With Slytherin's guidance echoing in his mind, Harry navigated the magical shopping district with outward awe but inward calculation. At Gringotts, he noted the goblin's reaction to his vault, surprise at his ignorance of his wealth. At Madame Malkin's, he met Draco Malfoy, instantly recognizing the name from Slytherin's lessons on influential families. Slytherin House wouldn't be so bad, Harry thought deliberately, knowing Slytherin could perceive his thoughts when focused. "Careful," came the ghostly reply. "Appear neutral on house placement for now." The most significant moment came at Ollivander's, where Mr. Ollivander revealed the connection between Harry's wand and Voldemort's, twin cores of phoenix feather. Harry feigned appropriate shock while mentally filing away this crucial information. Throughout the day, Harry noted how people reacted to him, the reverence, the whispers of "the boy who lived," the expectations visible in their eyes. He performed flawlessly, appearing humble and slightly overwhelmed while absorbing every nuance of information. When Hagrid finally returned him to Privet Drive with his trunk of school supplies, Harry waited until nightfall before slipping away to the chamber. Slytherin's ghost was waiting, practically vibrating with anticipation. "Well?" Harry grinned, dropping the innocent facade. "Everything happened exactly as you said it would. Dumbledore sent Hagrid, who's loyal but loose-tongued. He let slip about the Philosopher's Stone being moved from Gringotts to Hogwarts. He emphasized how terrible Slytherin House is and how wonderful Gryffindor was." "Predictable," Slytherin scoffed. "And your wand?" "Holly and phoenix feather, 13.5 inches. Ollivander said it's the brother wand to Voldemort's." Slytherin processed this information. "Interesting. This confirms my theory about your connection. Did you bring your supplies?" Harry nodded, opening his trunk. They spent hours examining his textbooks, wand, and other materials. Slytherin was particularly interested in A History of Magic, by Bathilda Bagshot. "Look how they've sanitized history," he hissed, reading over Harry's shoulder. No mention of the true reasons for the international statute of secrecy, nothing about goblin treachery during the rebellions, and their account of Hogwarts' founding is pure fiction. Over the remaining month before school began, Harry practiced basic spell work with his wand under Slytherin's guidance. The chamber's protective enchantments prevented the Ministry from detecting underage magic, allowing Harry to master first-year spells before ever boarding the Hogwarts Express. Remember, Slytherin instructed as September 1st approached, "At Hogwarts, you must be careful. The portraits, ghosts, and even the castle itself may report to Dumbledore. Show enough skill to be respected but not so much as to arouse suspicion." "What about the sorting?" Harry asked. "Which house should I aim for?" Slytherin considered this carefully. "The sorting hat will see into your mind. I've taught you enough occlumency to shield our specific plans, but it will sense my influence." He paused thoughtfully. Let it sort you genuinely, Harry. Each house offers different advantages for our purposes. The night before Harry left for Hogwarts, they reviewed their immediate goals. First, Slytherin enumerated, establish your public persona, bright but not exceptional, friendly but not seeking attention. Second, locate the chamber's entrance at Hogwarts. Third, gather allies among your classmates, not friends necessarily, but useful connections. And fourth, observe Dumbledore without arousing his suspicion. Harry nodded, mentally reviewing the complex plan they developed. And the Philosopher's Stone? Should I try to find out what protections it has? Cautiously. It's likely a trap of some kind, too convenient that Hagrid mentioned it, too suspicious that Dumbledore would bring such an item to a school. Slytherin's ghost drifted thoughtfully around the chamber. It may be bait to test you, to see if you have heroic tendencies they can exploit. On the morning of September 1st, Harry woke with nervous excitement. Vernon reluctantly drove him to King's Cross Station, abandoning him between platforms 9 and 10 with mocking laughter. Play along, Slytherin whispered in his mind. Look confused. Harry stood helplessly until the Weasley family appeared, a group Slytherin had mentioned might be aligned with Dumbledore. Feigning ignorance, Harry approached Mrs. Weasley for help, noting how loudly she discussed platform 9 3/4 in a Muggle area. Another test, Slytherin observed. Dumbledore's people ensuring you make the right connections. Once through the barrier, Harry boarded the Hogwarts Express, finding an empty compartment. As predicted, Ron Weasley soon appeared, asking to join him. Harry welcomed him warmly, playing his role while noting Ron's obvious awe at meeting the boy who lived. The journey passed with Harry gathering information through seemingly innocent conversation. When Hermione Granger appeared, searching for Neville's toad, Harry recognized her intellectual potential immediately. She could be valuable, Slytherin commented. Muggle-born, eager to prove herself. Such students are often overlooked despite their talent. Draco Malfoy's appearance offered another opportunity. When the blonde boy extended his hand in friendship, Harry hesitated just briefly before shaking it, despite Ron's obvious disapproval. I make my own judgments about people, Harry said mildly, surprising both boys. As the Hogwarts Express neared its destination, Harry changed into his robes, heart pounding with anticipation. 5 years of preparation had led to this moment. Tonight, he would be sorted. Tonight, his public journey in the wizarding world would truly begin. And no one, not even Albus Dumbledore, suspected that the innocent, wide-eyed boy they expected had been replaced by Salazar Slytherin's carefully trained protégé. Standing before the majestic castle for the first time, Harry took a deep breath. I'm ready, he whispered, both to himself and to the ghostly presence connected to his mind. Yes, Slytherin agreed. You are. Chapter 2, Shadows in the Castle. The Great Hall buzzed with excitement as first years filed in behind Professor McGonagall. Harry kept his expression neutral but took in everything, the enchanted ceiling reflecting a starry night sky, floating candles casting warm light across 4 long tables, and the staff table where Dumbledore sat watching the proceedings with twinkling eyes. It's exactly as you described, Harry thought, knowing Slytherin could hear him. Of course, came the ghostly reply in his mind. Though they've redecorated in rather Gryffindor-centric colors, haven't they? Harry bit back a smile as McGonagall placed the sorting hat on a stool. When it burst into song, Harry feigned surprise alongside his classmates while mentally reviewing Slytherin's advice, let the hat sort him genuinely but shield their specific plans. The sorting began. Hannah Abbott went to Hufflepuff. Susan Bones followed. When Hermione Granger's turn came, Harry watched with interest as the hat placed her in Gryffindor after nearly a full minute. Interesting, Slytherin whispered. The hat considered Ravenclaw for her. Draco Malfoy went immediately to Slytherin. No surprise there. Potter, Harry, McGonagall finally called. Whispers erupted throughout the hall as Harry stepped forward. He caught Dumbledore leaning forward slightly, fingers steepled together. Playing his role, Harry approached the stool with an appropriately nervous expression. The moment the hat touched his head, it gasped. "My word," it whispered in his mind. "What have we here? A mind touched by, impossible." "Hello," Harry thought calmly. "Young Potter, you carry the influence of Salazar Slytherin himself. How is this possible?" The hat rummaged deeper. "Ah, I see, a ghost, a chamber, years of secret training. Fascinating. Will you tell Dumbledore?" Harry asked mentally. The hat chuckled. "I am bound by magic to keep student secrets. The founders created me that way, even Salazar insisted on it. Though he might not have anticipated this particular scenario." "Where will you place me?" Harry asked. "Where indeed? You have courage worthy of Gryffindor, certainly. A mind that would excel in Ravenclaw. Loyalty that Hufflepuff would value." The hat paused. "But Salazar's influence runs deep, and your ambition is undeniable. Better be Slytherin." The last word echoed through the suddenly silent hall. Harry removed the hat and stood, noting the varied reactions: shock from McGonagall, calculation from Dumbledore, smug satisfaction from Snape, and utter betrayal from Ron Weasley. The Slytherin table's applause started hesitantly, then grew stronger. As Harry took his seat beside a wide-eyed Draco Malfoy, he caught Dumbledore's gaze and offered a small, confused smile, the reaction of an innocent boy surprised by his placement. "Perfect," Slytherin's voice approved. "Now watch how they all recalibrate their expectations." The rest of the sorting passed in a blur of whispers and speculation. When Dumbledore gave his nonsensical welcome speech, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, Harry observed the headmaster more carefully. "He's testing reactions," Slytherin noted. "Seeing who's confused, who's amused. Old habits from his spy days." During the feast, Harry carefully balanced his interactions, friendly but reserved, curious about wizarding customs while displaying just enough knowledge to explain his sorting. Draco Malfoy, clearly instructed by his father to befriend the boy who lived, was flummoxed by Harry's placement in his house. "Father said you'd likely be a Gryffindor," Draco admitted quietly. "Like your parents." The hat considered it, Harry replied truthfully. "But said I had qualities better suited for Slytherin." He shrugged. "Is that a problem?" "No." Draco said quickly. "It's brilliant. Wait till father hears." Harry caught Pansy Parkinson watching this exchange with narrowed eyes. "I thought Potter was raised by Muggles," she said. "How'd you end up in our house?" "The hat said something about ambition and cunning," Harry answered, then added with calculated hesitation, "and something about a natural affinity." That sparked immediate interest from the older Slytherins nearby. Theodore Nott leaned forward. "Natural affinity?" Harry blinked innocently. "Is that important?" "It could be," said an older student Harry recognized as Marcus Flint. "Depends what kind of affinity. We'll discuss this in the common room," cut in a prefect named Gemma Farley. "Not here." Harry noted how information was controlled. Slytherins kept house business private. Exactly as his mentor had taught him. After dinner, Dumbledore gave warnings about the Forbidden Forest and the third-floor corridor, for those who do not wish to die a most painful death. Harry exchanged glances with Draco. "Is he serious?" Harry whispered. "Must be," Draco replied. "Though why keep something deadly in a school?" "Indeed," Slytherin's voice murmured. "The stone bait is set." The Slytherin prefects led first-years down to the dungeons, stopping before a bare stone wall. "Ambition," Gemma Farley stated, and the wall slid open to reveal the common room, a long, low-ceilinged space with greenish lamps, dark leather sofas, and windows that looked out into the depths of the lake. "Gather round, first-years," called Gemma. "Professor Snape will address you shortly. Until then, a few house rules." Harry listened as she explained Slytherin expectations: house unity in public, bringing disputes to prefects first, and maintaining the house's reputation for excellence. As she spoke, older students filtered in, many casting curious glances at Harry. Professor Snape arrived in a billow of black robes. His gaze swept the room before settling on Harry with an unreadable expression. Slytherin House, Snape began softly, has produced some of the finest witches and wizards in history. I expect each of you to uphold that tradition. His eyes lingered on Harry again. Regardless of celebrity status. He's conflicted about you, Slytherin observed. Your mother's eyes in James Potter's face, now in his house. Watch him carefully. After Snape's departure, the unofficial house meeting began. Sixth-year prefect Adrian Pusey stepped forward. Potter, he said directly. Your sorting was unexpected. Care to elaborate on this natural affinity the Hat mentioned? All eyes turned to Harry. This moment was crucial for establishing his position in Slytherin's complex hierarchy. He'd rehearsed this with Slytherin countless times. The Hat said I had qualities Salazar Slytherin himself would value, Harry said carefully. When I asked what it mentioned something about my magical signature feeling, familiar to the house. Murmurs spread through the common room. An older girl with calculating eyes spoke up. You're claiming a magical connection to Salazar Slytherin while being a half-blood raised by muggles. I'm not claiming anything, Harry countered calmly. I'm telling you what the Hat said. I know as little about my magical heritage as anyone would in my position. Except, interjected Draco, Potter speaks Parseltongue. The room fell silent. Harry shot Draco a look of confusion. What's Parseltongue? Snake language, Draco said smugly. Father told me there were rumors. Can you really speak to snakes, Potter? This was earlier than planned, but adaptability was key to their strategy. Harry feigned reluctance. I talked to a garden snake once. At the zoo on my cousin's birthday. I didn't realize it was magical. Show us, demanded an older student. I don't see any snakes here, Harry pointed out reasonably. Adrian Pusey smirked and drew his wand. With a quick spell, he conjured a small green snake that slithered across the floor. Harry met the snake's gaze and carefully let a soft hiss escape his lips. Hello, little one. The snake raised its head. A speaker. Rare. Yes, Harry replied. Could you coil once if they ask you to? The common room had gone deathly quiet. Harry looked up to find every Slytherin staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to calculation to fear. Merlin's beard, whispered someone. He really is a Parselmouth. Ask it to coil in a circle, challenged Marcus Flint. Harry did so, and the snake immediately complied before Pusey vanished it. Well, said Gemma Farley after a moment. That changes things. Within minutes, the Slytherin hierarchy shifted around Harry. No longer was he just the boy who lived sorted unexpectedly into their house, he was potentially connected to their founder's bloodline, possessing an ability strongly associated with Slytherin himself. This is a house matter, Adrian announced to the room. No one discusses Potter's ability outside these walls without permission. Understood? The unified nod demonstrated Slytherin house solidarity. Harry knew they'd protect this information, not out of loyalty to him, but because it potentially elevated their house's status. That night in his four-poster bed, surrounded by the gentle sounds of water lapping against the dormitory windows, Harry communicated silently with Slytherin. That went better than expected, Harry thought. Indeed. Your Parseltongue revelation was earlier than planned, but it establishes your position nicely. Now, your priority is locating the chamber entrance. Tomorrow, Harry promised. After classes. The first week passed in a blur of lessons, subtle observation, and careful networking. Harry demonstrated enough magical aptitude to be respected without drawing undue attention. He answered questions correctly when called upon but didn't volunteer information constantly like Hermione Granger. In Transfiguration, McGonagall watched him with thinly veiled disappointment when he successfully turned a match into a needle on his third attempt. In Charms, Flitwick squeaked excitedly when Harry levitated his feather with apparent beginner's luck. In Potions, Snape's conflicted feelings manifested in pointed questions followed by grudging acknowledgement when Harry answered correctly. Asphodel and Wormwood make the draught of living death, sir, Harry replied to Snape's first challenge. I read about it in our textbook. Snape's eyes narrowed slightly. Correct, Mr. Potter. Perhaps fame isn't everything after all. Within Slytherin, Harry navigated a delicate balance, accepting Draco's friendship without endorsing his more prejudiced views, establishing cordial relations with other first-years, and showing appropriate deference to older students. He was careful to maintain house unity in public while observing the internal factions. Slytherin politics haven't changed much since my day, his mentor commented as Harry mentally catalogued alliances. The Malfoy-led faction values blood purity and traditional power. The Greengrass contingent favors pragmatic neutrality. And there are always a few independent thinkers watching from the shadows. By Friday, Harry had mapped enough of the castle to begin searching for the chamber entrance. Slytherin had described its location, a girl's bathroom on the second floor where a student had died during the last opening. The plumbing was added centuries after my time, Slytherin explained. My original entrance was repurposed, but the basilisk created new passages throughout the castle. That evening, Harry waited until curfew approached before slipping away from his classmates. He'd cultivated a reputation for exploring the library, so his absence wouldn't immediately raise alarms. Under the pretense of returning a book, he made his way to the second floor. The bathroom was out of order, water pooling on the floor and an out of order sign hanging crookedly on the door. Harry entered cautiously. Who's there? Came a mournful voice. A ghost of a young girl with thick glasses floated out of a stall. You're not a girl. Sorry, Harry said. I was exploring and got lost. No one comes here except to throw things at Myrtle, the ghost sulked. Poor, miserable Myrtle. You're Myrtle? Harry asked, realization dawning. Did you attend Hogwarts? Until I died, yes, she sniffled. In this very bathroom. I'm sorry, Harry said sincerely. How did it happen? Myrtle perked up, apparently, she enjoyed discussing her death. Oh, it was dreadful. I was hiding from Olive Hornby who teased me about my glasses. I heard someone come in, a boy, speaking some funny language. I opened the stall to tell him to use his own bathroom, and then. She paused dramatically. I died. Just like that? Harry asked. I saw big yellow eyes, by that sink there, she pointed. Then my body sort of seized up, and I floated away. She twirled in demonstration. I came back to haunt Olive, of course. Harry thanked her and examined the sink she'd indicated. One of the taps had a tiny snake scratched into its side. This is it, Slytherin confirmed in his mind. The entrance. But not now, too risky with the ghost present. Return during class hours when the bathroom will be empty. Harry nodded imperceptibly and bid Myrtle good night, promising to visit again. As he made his way back toward the dungeons, a sudden movement caught his eye, Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, watching him from a corner. Harry quickened his pace, turning down a corridor to avoid her when he collided with someone. Mr. Potter, came Professor Quirrell's stuttering voice. WW wandering the sea corridors after sea curfew? Harry looked up at the turbaned professor. The moment their eyes met, his scar prickled uncomfortably. I'm sorry, Professor, Harry said, rubbing his forehead. I was returning a library book and got turned around. Quirrell's eyes narrowed slightly, the stutter momentarily forgotten. Curious that your scar would hurt in my presence, isn't it, Potter? The direct question, combined with the sudden clarity in Quirrell's voice, confirmed Slytherin's suspicions. This was no ordinary professor. Just a headache, sir, Harry replied innocently. First week nerves, probably. Indeed. Quirrell's stutter returned. Be best get back to your dormitory before F. Filch finds you. As Harry continued toward the dungeons, Slytherin's voice was urgent in his mind. That confirms it. Voldemort is possessing Quirrell, likely trying to steal the stone. Your scar reacts to his presence. Should we expose him? Harry asked mentally. Not yet. We need more information. Watch him, but avoid direct contact when possible. Over the next few weeks, Harry established a routine. During classes, he performed at a level that placed him comfortably among the top students without drawing undue attention. He formed a cordial rivalry with Hermione Granger, who seemed conflicted about a Slytherin challenging her academic standing. She's isolated in Gryffindor, Harry observed to Draco during a study session. Smart, but no one appreciates it. Who cares about a Muggle-born know-it-all? Draco scoffed. Harry shrugged. Smart allies are useful, regardless of background. Isn't that the Slytherin way? Draco looked thoughtful. Father says the same thing, actually. Use what's useful. He lowered his voice. Is that why you talked to that Longbottom kid in herbology? He knows plants better than anyone in our year, Harry pointed out pragmatically. And he's from an old pure-blood family. This approach, framing tolerance as strategic advantage, slowly influenced his Slytherin classmates. Harry didn't confront blood supremacy directly but subtly shifted perspectives through demonstrated success. Meanwhile, during free periods when the second-floor bathroom was empty, Harry explored the chamber entrance. On his third visit, he successfully opened it by hissing "open" to the snake-marked tap. The sink moved aside, revealing a large pipe. The basilisk is likely dormant, Slytherin advised as Harry peered into the darkness. It's been decades since it was last awakened. We'll enter fully next weekend when you have more time. Harry nodded, closing the entrance and making a mental note to bring supplies for a proper exploration. As he turned to leave, he found himself face to face with Hermione Granger. What are you doing in a girl's bathroom, Potter? She asked suspiciously. Harry didn't miss a beat. Hiding from Filch. I took a shortcut that ended up being a dead end. What's your excuse? Hermione looked flustered. I sometimes come here to practice spells. No one uses this bathroom because of Moaning Myrtle. An opportunity presented itself. You practice alone. That's smart. I've been looking for a quiet place to try some advanced charms. Hermione's expression shifted from suspicion to curiosity. Advanced charms? Like what? The mending charm, for starters. I've been reading ahead. Harry pointed to a cracked mirror. Want to see? Before she could answer, Harry drew his wand and carefully performed the spell. Reparo. The cracks in the glass sealed themselves perfectly. Hermione's eyes widened. That's a third-year charm. Harry shrugged modestly. I like learning practical magic. Better than memorizing Goblin Rebellion dates, anyway. Actually, wizarding history is fascinating if you look beyond Bin's lectures, Hermione countered, then caught herself. But yes, practical spells are important too. Maybe we could practice together sometime, Harry suggested casually. Share notes. I could use help with history of magic, and maybe I could show you some of the charms I've been working on. The offer of academic exchange was perfectly calculated to appeal to Hermione. She hesitated, clearly conflicted about associating with a Slytherin, but her thirst for knowledge won out. I suppose that would be acceptable, she said finally. Tuesday afternoons. Perfect, Harry agreed. And Hermione? Let's keep this between us for now. House rivalries and all that. She nodded understanding, and Harry made his exit, pleased with this development. Befriending Hermione hadn't been in their immediate plans, but adaptability was crucial. Well played, Slytherin approved. The Granger girl has considerable potential and no strong prior loyalties. Just be careful she doesn't discover the chamber entrance. The following weekend, Harry finally entered the chamber properly. Using a convenient Hogsmeade visit that left the castle half empty, he slipped away to the bathroom, opened the entrance, and cast a cushioning charm before sliding down the pipe. The tunnel was just as Slytherin had described, damp, dark, and littered with small animal bones. Harry lit his wand and proceeded cautiously, stepping over a massive snakeskin that confirmed the basilisk's size. When he reached the chamber proper, Harry gazed in awe at the towering stone pillars entwined with serpent carvings, the high ceiling lost in darkness, and the enormous statue of Salazar Slytherin himself at the far end. "It's magnificent," Harry whispered. It was meant to be. Slytherin's voice seemed stronger here. This was more than a hiding place for the basilisk, it was a sanctuary for learning magic too dangerous or controversial for regular classes. Harry approached the statue. "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four," he hissed in Parseltongue, following his mentor's instructions. The statue's mouth opened slowly, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. "The basilisk sleeps within," Slytherin explained. "We won't wake it yet, not until we've prepared proper control measures. Its gaze is lethal to anyone who meets it directly." Instead, Harry explored the side chambers. One contained an ancient study, desk, chairs, and bookshelves preserved by powerful stasis charms. Another held potion-making equipment and ingredient storage. A third revealed what appeared to be living quarters, complete with a bed, wardrobe, and washing facilities. "My private sanctuary," Slytherin confirmed. "When disagreements with the other founders became intolerable, I would retreat here to continue my research." Harry ran his fingers over the dust-covered tomes on the shelves. These books must contain knowledge lost to the wizarding world. Indeed. Many were written in Parseltongue to prevent theft or misuse. You'll be able to read them now. Over the next several hours, Harry set up the chamber as his own secret base within Hogwarts. He cast cleaning charms on the furniture, organized the books, and catalogued the potion ingredients that remained viable. "The ritual to remove your Horcrux will require components not found here," Slytherin noted as Harry inventoried the supplies. "Basilisk venom we have, but we'll need phoenix tears and several rare artifacts." "Fox," Harry mused. "Dumbledore's phoenix. How do we get tears from him?" "Phoenixes respond to loyalty and nobility of purpose," Slytherin explained. "When the time comes, we may be able to appeal directly to the bird without Dumbledore's knowledge." As October arrived, Harry settled into his double life, model student by day, chamber explorer by night. He established regular study sessions with Hermione, using their mutual academic interests to build a tentative friendship. To maintain his Slytherin standing, he shared selected academic insights with his housemates, particularly Theo Knott and Blaise Zabini, who appreciated knowledge without Draco's prejudice. Halloween marked a turning point. When Professor Quirrell burst into the Great Hall announcing a troll in the dungeons, Harry immediately remembered Hermione. She'd been crying in the bathrooms after Ron Weasley insulted her earlier that day. "This is Quirrell's distraction," Slytherin warned. "He's after the stone while everyone's focused on the troll." "But Hermione doesn't know about the troll," Harry thought urgently. "Your choice, Harry," Slytherin replied after a moment's hesitation. "The stone or the girl?" It wasn't really a choice. Harry slipped away from the Slytherin prefects and ran toward the girls' bathroom. He encountered the troll in the corridor, 12 feet tall, granite-gray skin, and the stench of old socks. It was dragging its massive club along the floor, heading directly toward the bathroom where Hermione was hiding. Harry acted instinctively. "Hey! Over here," he shouted, then sent a stinging hex at the troll's back. The creature turned, confused, as Harry continued firing minor hexes to hold its attention. When the troll charged, Harry dove between its legs and fired a more powerful spell at the ceiling above it. Reducto. Chunks of stone rained down on the troll. It stumbled, disoriented, giving Harry the opening he needed. Remembering a spell from Slytherin's advanced training, he pointed his wand at the troll's club. Wingardium Leviosa. The club wrenched from the troll's grasp, rose high into the air, and dropped with a sickening crack onto its owner's head. The troll swayed and collapsed with a thud that shook the corridor. Hermione emerged from the bathroom, trembling. "Harry? Is it dead?" "Just knocked out," Harry assured her, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" Before she could answer, Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell arrived on the scene. McGonagall looked from the unconscious troll to Harry with a mixture of shock and outrage. "What on earth were you thinking, Mr. Potter? You could have been killed." "I knew Hermione was in the bathroom, Professor," Harry explained. "She didn't know about the troll. I had to warn her." McGonagall's expression softened slightly, but Snape's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "And how exactly did a first-year student overcome a full-grown mountain troll?" he asked silkily. "I used Wingardium Leviosa on its club," Harry answered truthfully, though omitting the Reducto spell. "We learned it in Charms last week." Hermione stepped forward. "It's true, Professor. Harry saved my life." Quirrell, Harry noticed, was keeping his distance from the troll, looking pale and trembling dramatically. But his eyes betrayed calculation rather than fear when they briefly met Harry's. "He knows you're not an ordinary student," Slytherin warned. "Voldemort senses a worthy opponent." In the aftermath, Harry and Hermione formed a genuine friendship. The Gryffindor girl became a regular visitor to their study spot in the abandoned bathroom, though Harry was careful to never open the chamber when she might discover it. November brought Quidditch season. During the first Gryffindor-Slytherin match, Harry observed from the stands as Quirrell attempted to jinx one of the Gryffindor players' brooms. Snape, surprisingly, appeared to be performing a counter-jinx. "Interesting," Slytherin commented. Snape suspects Quirrell too. After the match, Harry deliberately positioned himself to overhear a confrontation between the two professors at the forest's edge. Snape challenged Quirrell about his Halloween activities, mentioning your little bit of hocus-pocus and warning him about where your loyalties lie. "Snape knows something," Harry reported to Slytherin later in the chamber. "He's trying to protect the stone. Or claim it for himself," Slytherin countered. "Trust no one completely, Harry. Everyone has motives we don't fully understand." As Christmas approached, Harry chose to remain at Hogwarts during break, using the emptier castle to explore more thoroughly. On Christmas morning, he received his first-ever presents. Slytherin House had its own gift-giving traditions, with each student receiving something small from fellow housemates. More significant was an anonymous gift containing an invisibility cloak with a note identifying it as his father's possession. "Dumbledore," Slytherin said immediately. "This is his move, giving you the means to explore at night, probably hoping you'll investigate the third-floor corridor." "Should I use it?" Harry asked, admiring the fluid, silvery material. "Absolutely. It's genuinely yours by inheritance, and too valuable to reject. Just be aware it's likely part of his test." The cloak proved invaluable for Harry's nighttime explorations. During one such excursion, he discovered the Mirror of Eriste in an unused classroom. Standing before it, Harry saw not just himself, but Slytherin's ghost made corporeal beside him, along with two figures he recognized as his parents. "What do you see?" Slytherin asked curiously. "Family," Harry answered simply. "Belonging." He returned to the mirror several nights in a row, studying its enchantments and properties, until inevitably, Dumbledore appeared. "Back again, Harry?" The headmaster's voice came from the shadows. Harry feigned surprise, though he'd sensed the magical presence. "Professor Dumbledore. I didn't see you." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," Dumbledore said lightly. "So, you've discovered the delights of the Mirror of Eriste." Their conversation proceeded exactly as Slytherin had predicted, Dumbledore explaining the mirror's function, warning about its dangers, and mentioning that it would be moved to a new location. What interested Harry most was Dumbledore's claim that he saw himself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks when he looked in the mirror. "A lie," Slytherin noted. Quite an obvious one. He tests your credulity. After Dumbledore left, Harry made one final study of the mirror. This will be part of the stone's protection, he concluded. Its true power isn't just showing desire, but perhaps trapping those who succumb to it. The second term brought new opportunities and challenges. Harry continued his careful academic performance, maintaining top marks while still appearing to put in normal effort. His friendship with Hermione deepened as they exchanged knowledge, her textbook perfectionism complementing his practical experience. More surprising was his developing relationship with Neville Longbottom. The timid Gryffindor initially seemed terrified when Harry approached him for herbology help, but gradually warmed to Harry's genuine interest in his plant knowledge. Longbottom comes from a powerful family, Slytherin had pointed out. His parents were formidable before they were attacked. The potential is there, buried under his insecurity. Harry worked patiently with Neville, helping improve his wand work during their study sessions with Hermione. In return, Neville provided insights about pure-blood traditions that even Slytherin found valuable for understanding modern wizarding politics. The Wizengamot still follows the old alliance structures, Neville explained one afternoon while they worked on a herbology project. Gran says nothing really changes because the same families have held power for centuries. Does your family have a Wizengamot seat? Harry asked casually. Neville nodded. The Longbottoms are one of the ancient houses. Not sacred 28 because we didn't sign the blood purity registry, but we have a hereditary seat. Gran holds it until I'm of age. This information fit perfectly into the political map Harry was constructing. Between Neville's insights, Draco's boasting about his father's influence, and historical context from Slytherin, Harry began to understand the power dynamics that would eventually affect his plans. By early spring, Harry had gathered enough information about the stone's protections to make his move. Through careful observation and selective eavesdropping, he determined that the third-floor corridor contained a series of obstacles created by different professors, Sprout's Devil's Snare, Flitwick's Charmed Keys, McGonagall's Transfigured Chess Set, and others. It's too convenient, Slytherin observed. Almost as if Dumbledore designed it for a first year to navigate. A test rather than true protection. But Quirrell and Voldemort don't know that, Harry pointed out. They'll make their attempt soon. The question is, do we let them? After careful consideration, they decided to allow events to unfold while gathering intelligence. Harry would follow Quirrell when he made his move but avoid direct confrontation if possible. The opportunity came in June, shortly before exams. Harry noticed Quirrell's increasing agitation and the darkening of the turban where Voldemort's face was hidden. Using his invisibility cloak, Harry tracked the professor's movements until one evening when Quirrell headed directly for the third-floor corridor. Under the cloak, Harry followed at a distance. He watched Quirrell dispatch Fluffy with enchanted music and drop through the trapdoor. After waiting several minutes, Harry followed. The obstacles proved exactly as anticipated. Harry navigated through each one, staying far enough behind Quirrell to avoid detection but close enough to observe his methods. The final chamber contained the Mirror of Eriste, just as Harry had predicted. Quirrell stood before the mirror, Voldemort's face now visible on the back of his head. Harry watched from the shadows as they argued about retrieving the stone. Use the boy, Voldemort finally hissed. Potter? Quirrell spun around. He must be in his dormitory. I am here, Harry said calmly, stepping forward and removing the cloak. He decided that direct confrontation was inevitable and preferred to control the terms. Potter. Quirrell's surprise seemed genuine. How convenient. Indeed, Harry replied, keeping his wand ready but not raised. I've been watching you all year, Professor. Or should I say, professors. Voldemort's high, cold laugh emanated from the back of Quirrell's head. Clever boy. Cleverer than I expected from Dumbledore's pawn. I'm nobody's pawn, Harry stated firmly. Look in the mirror, Potter, Quirrell commanded. Tell me what you see. Harry approached the mirror cautiously, remembering Slytherin's guidance. Show a half-truth. Something believable but incomplete. In the reflection, Harry saw himself holding the Philosopher's Stone, then placing it in his pocket. At that same moment, he felt the actual stone materialize in his real pocket, exactly as Dumbledore had designed the enchantment. "Well?" Voldemort demanded. "What do you see?" "I see myself becoming head boy," Harry lied smoothly. "Dumbledore is shaking my hand." "He lies." Voldemort shrieked. "Seize him." Quirrell lunged forward, grabbing Harry's wrist. Immediately, blistering pain seared through Harry's scar, but more surprisingly, Quirrell howled in agony as his hand developed painful blisters. "Master, I cannot touch him!" Quirrell cried. "Then kill him, fool!" Voldemort commanded. Quirrell raised his wand, but Harry was faster. Using one of Slytherin's more advanced spells, he cast a blinding flash of light that temporarily disoriented both Quirrell and Voldemort. In their confusion, Harry ducked behind a pillar, calculating his next move. "The blood protection," Slytherin's voice guided him. "Your mother's sacrifice makes his touch painful to you both. Use it." When Quirrell regained his vision and charged again, Harry deliberately allowed himself to be tackled. The moment Quirrell's skin contacted his, Harry grabbed the professor's face with both hands, focusing his magic into the touch. Quirrell screamed as his skin blistered and crumbled beneath Harry's fingers. Harry maintained contact despite the excruciating pain in his scar, knowing this was his best defense. As Quirrell collapsed, a wraith-like form tore itself from the dying man's body, Voldemort's spirit, fleeing without its host. Harry fell back, physically and magically exhausted. The stone weighed heavily in his pocket, but he made no move to examine it. Instead, he positioned himself to appear as though he'd collapsed from the effort of fighting Quirrell. Right on cue, Dumbledore burst into the chamber, his expression shifting from alarm to calculated relief upon seeing Harry alive and Quirrell defeated. "Harry!" The headmaster rushed forward, checking his pulse. "Can you hear me?" Harry allowed his eyes to flutter open weakly. "Professor." "Quirrell." "Voldemort." "I know, my boy, I know. You're safe now." Dumbledore's tone was grandfatherly, concerned. "The stone is safe." Harry nodded, slipping his hand into his pocket and withdrawing the stone. "I couldn't let him get it." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. "Well done, Harry. Very well done indeed." As Dumbledore levitated him toward the hospital wing, Harry maintained his facade of exhausted innocence while mentally communicating with Slytherin. "He arrived exactly when expected," Harry noted. "He wanted me to face Voldemort alone." "Another test," Slytherin agreed grimly. "Confirming your saving people tendency and your ability to withstand Voldemort's presence. Dumbledore plays the long game, always." In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey fussed over Harry's injuries while Dumbledore watched with that same calculated twinkle. When they were momentarily alone, the headmaster spoke more directly. "What you did was extraordinarily brave, Harry. Few grown wizards could have faced what you did." "I just did what seemed right," Harry replied, playing the modest hero. "And that, my boy, makes all the difference." Dumbledore patted his hand. "I must ask, though, were you surprised to find yourself in Slytherin House? Your parents were both Gryffindors, after all." Here it was, the fishing expedition Harry had been expecting all year. "The hat said I had qualities of both houses," Harry answered carefully. "But something about Slytherin felt right, somehow. Like I belonged there." He paused, then added with calculated hesitation, "Is that bad?" "Not at all," Dumbledore assured him, though Harry caught the brief flicker of concern in his eyes. "It is our choices that show what we truly are, Harry, far more than our abilities or our house affiliations." The conversation continued with Dumbledore explaining the protection Harry's mother had provided through her sacrifice, information Harry already knew from Slytherin but feigned amazement at hearing. The headmaster confirmed the stone would be destroyed and carefully avoided mentioning what would happen when Voldemort inevitably returned. After Dumbledore left, Slytherin's voice returned. He's recalibrating his plans for you. The Slytherin sorting wasn't in his original calculations. Good, Harry thought back. Unpredictability gives us advantage. The following day, Hermione and Neville visited the hospital wing, bringing cards and sweets. Hermione hugged him tearfully, having heard rumors of his confrontation with Quirrell. You could have been killed, she scolded. Why didn't you tell me what you were investigating? It happened suddenly, Harry lied. I saw Quirrell heading for the corridor and followed on impulse. That was really brave, Neville said quietly. Everyone's talking about it. What exactly are they saying? Harry asked casually. Hermione sighed. That you stopped Quirrell from stealing something valuable. That you know who was somehow involved. The stories get wilder with each retelling. The Slytherins are acting weird too, Neville added. They keep giving Gryffindors these smug looks, like your house gets credit for what you did. This was useful information. House politics would shift based on these perceptions. Harry stored these insights away for later consideration. When he returned to the Slytherin common room the day before the leaving feast, Harry found his housemates regarding him with newfound respect. Even those who had been skeptical of his place among them now seemed to accept his status. So, Potter, Draco drawled, though with less arrogance than usual, finally decided to join us common mortals again after your adventure. The hospital wing isn't exactly a vacation spot, Draco, Harry replied with a smirk. Theodore not leaned forward. Is it true you faced the Dark Lord? The common room fell silent, awaiting Harry's answer. This moment would define how the house perceived him moving forward. I faced what remains of him, Harry said carefully. He's not gone, just bodiless. Diminished. Murmurs spread through the room. Many students there had family connections to Death Eaters, and Harry's confirmation of Voldemort's continued existence carried significant implications. And you fought him? Pansy Parkinson asked, her usual sneer absent. I survived him, Harry corrected. Again. He let that sink in before adding, but next time, I'll be better prepared. The statement carried weight beyond its simple words. Harry was declaring his position, not aligned with Voldemort, but not necessarily against all he represented either. It was a carefully neutral stance that allowed his housemates to draw their own conclusions. Later, in the privacy of his bed with silencing charms in place, Harry discussed summer plans with Slytherin. The Dursleys will be worse than ever, he predicted. After a year of freedom, going back to that cupboard. Perhaps not, Slytherin mused. I've been considering options for your living situation. The blood protection requires you return briefly, but not for the entire summer. What do you have in mind? Harry asked. A two-pronged approach. First, we'll use the legal system. The goblins can help establish your status as heir to House Potter, which carries certain rights even for underage wizards. Second, we'll employ strategic leverage against the Dursleys themselves. The end-of-year feast arrived with Gryffindor winning the House Cup, until Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to Harry, Hermione, Ron Weasley, and Neville for the Quirrell incident, pushing Slytherin to second place. A calculated insult, Slytherin noted as Harry's housemates grumbled around him. He's reminding you where he believes you should belong. Harry maintained a neutral expression, neither celebrating nor complaining. When Draco fumed about the unfairness, Harry simply shrugged. Next year we'll win on our own terms, he said loud enough for nearby students to hear. Without needing last-minute charity. The train ride back to London gave Harry time for final conversations with his growing network of allies. Hermione extracted promises to write over the summer. Neville awkwardly offered Harry an open invitation to visit his grandmother's estate. Even the Weasley twins, Fred and George, stopped by his compartment to express grudging admiration for his rule-breaking for the greater good. As the Hogwarts Express pulled into King's Cross, Harry spotted the Dursleys waiting with sour expressions. Before disembarking, he whispered to Draco, "Watch this." Approaching his relatives with deliberate confidence, Harry spoke clearly. "Hello, Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia. I'd like you to meet some of my friends from school." Vernon purpled at the implied threat of school, but remained silent as Harry casually introduced Draco, whose father sits on several important government boards, and Theodore, whose family has significant influence in law enforcement. Both boys, catching on quickly, offered coolly polite greetings with unmistakable undertones of warning. "My godfather was asking about my living conditions," Harry added conversationally to Vernon, though no such discussion had occurred. "I told him everything's been fine, of course." Vernon's complexion shifted from purple to ashen. "Get in the car, boy," he muttered. "We haven't got all day." As Harry collected his trunk, Draco whispered, "You don't have a godfather, do you?" "Not officially," Harry replied with a wink. "But they don't know that." The drive to Privet Drive passed in tense silence. Upon arrival, Harry was surprised when Uncle Vernon carried his trunk upstairs, not to the cupboard, but to Dudley's second bedroom. "You'll stay here now," Vernon grunted. "Don't make me regret it." Alone in his new room, Harry smiled as Slytherin's voice returned. Phase 1 complete. They fear magical oversight. Now we begin the legal process. The first week of summer passed with the Dursleys maintaining a wary distance. Harry was still assigned chores but no longer locked up or overtly mistreated. He used this relative freedom to plan his escape from Privet Drive altogether. Following Slytherin's guidance, Harry wrote a carefully worded letter to Gringotts Bank, requesting information about his accounts and inheritance. 3 days later, an official-looking owl delivered a response, inviting him to a private consultation with his account manager. "Now we need transportation to Diagon Alley," Harry mused. "The night bus," Slytherin suggested. "Standard transportation for stranded witches and wizards. Just raise your wand hand at the curb." The following evening, Harry slipped out after the Dursleys were asleep. Standing on the curb of Magnolia Crescent, he raised his wand hand as instructed. With a deafening bang, a violently purple triple-decker bus materialized before him. "Welcome to the night bus," announced a pimply conductor. "Emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I will be your conductor this evening." Harry paid the fare to London and endured the chaotic journey to the Leaky Cauldron, where he disembarked looking slightly green but triumphant. Tom the barkeeper recognized him immediately. "Mr. Potter. What brings you here so late?" "Gringotts business in the morning," Harry explained politely. "I was hoping to get a room for the night." Tom was happy to oblige, and soon Harry was settled in a comfortable room, a stark contrast to Privet Drive. The next morning, he made his way to Gringotts for his appointment. The Goblin account manager, Gornick, greeted Harry with the minimum courtesy required. "Mr. Potter. You requested information about your accounts." "Yes," Harry replied, following Slytherin's coaching. "I recently learned of my heritage and wish to understand my responsibilities as the last Potter." Gornick's expression shifted slightly. Apparently, this approach was unusual for an 11-year-old wizard. "Very well. As the sole heir to House Potter, you have access to your trust vault until majority. The main Potter vault and properties remain in stasis until you reach 17, though as the last of your line, you may petition for earlier access under special circumstances." "What special circumstances?" Harry asked. "Emancipation. Marriage. Or, unusual hardship." Gornick studied Harry carefully. "Your magical guardian would need to approve, of course." "And who is my magical guardian?" Harry asked, though Slytherin had already deduced the answer. "Albus Dumbledore, by ministry appointment after your parents' death." Harry nodded thoughtfully. "What about my living situation? Can my magical guardian determine where I reside during summers?" Gornick shuffled some parchments. "Technically, yes. However, There are provisions in magical law for heirs of ancient houses to petition for alternative arrangements if their current residence is unsuitable. This was exactly the opening Slytherin had predicted. My current residence is with Muggle relatives who despise magic and have treated me poorly. I'd like to explore those provisions. The meeting lasted hours as Gornick outlined Harry's options. By its conclusion, Harry had set in motion a subtle but legally sound plan to gain control over his living arrangements without directly challenging Dumbledore's guardianship, at least not yet. The Blood Wards require your presence for at least 2 weeks each summer, Slytherin reminded him as Harry left Gringotts. But after that, you'll have alternatives. Those alternatives materialized over the following month. First came a formal letter from Gringotts to the Dursleys, informing them that as guardians of the Potter heir, they were entitled to a monthly stipend, which they had apparently been receiving for years without Harry's knowledge. The letter politely requested an accounting of how these funds had been used for Harry's benefit. Vernon's face turned an interesting shade of grey when Harry, innocently, asked about the letter at breakfast. Petunia's pinched expression confirmed they'd been pocketing the money while forcing Harry to live in a cupboard. "We've spent far more raising you than any stipend," Vernon blustered, but his nervousness was obvious. "I'm sure the goblins would accept documented expenses," Harry replied mildly. "They're very thorough with financial records." The threat hung in the air. If investigated, the Dursleys would be found guilty of financial fraud against a wizarding heir, a serious offense in both worlds. The second part of their strategy involved magical law. As Gornick had explained, heirs to ancient houses could petition for summer residence at properties owned by family friends, provided certain conditions were met. Harry submitted such a petition naming Neville Longbottom's grandmother as a willing host. Augusta Longbottom, impressed by Neville's improved confidence after befriending Harry, had indeed extended an invitation when Harry wrote explaining his situation. As a formidable witch with her own Wisengamot seat, she was one of the few people Dumbledore couldn't easily overrule. 2 days before Harry's required 2-week stay at Privet Drive concluded, a ministry owl delivered the response to his petition, conditional approval for residence at Longbottom Manor for the remainder of the summer, pending a home visit by a ministry representative to confirm the Dursleys' unsuitability. When the representative arrived, a bored-looking witch from the Department of Magical Child Welfare, Harry didn't need to exaggerate. The bars still visible on his window from a recent attempt to lock him in, Dudley's broken toys filling the second bedroom while Harry's few possessions remained in his school trunk, and the chore list tacked to the refrigerator told their own story. The approval came through that evening. Harry packed his belongings, informed the Dursleys he'd be leaving until next summer, and awaited Augusta Longbottom's arrival the following morning. "You'll be back," Vernon sneered. "Your kind always dumps problems back on normal people." "I'll return next summer for exactly 2 weeks, Harry replied calmly. "Magical law requires it. After that, we need never see each other until the following year." When Augusta arrived, an imposing elderly witch wearing a vulture-topped hat, the Dursleys couldn't usher Harry out fast enough. With a disdainful glance at Privet Drive, Augusta took Harry's arm and brought them directly to Longbottom Manor. The remainder of the summer proved transformative. Augusta ran her household with strict discipline but genuine care. Neville, initially nervous about hosting Harry, gradually relaxed as they worked together in the manor's impressive greenhouses and practiced spellwork under Augusta's critical but fair supervision. More importantly, Harry gained access to the Longbottom Library, which contained volumes on magical law, politics, and history unavailable at Hogwarts. With Slytherin's guidance, he absorbed information crucial to their long-term plans. "The Wisengamot structure hasn't changed in centuries," Slytherin noted as Harry studied a book on magical governance. "The same families still control most votes, though the ministry has gradually claimed more executive power." Augusta, noting Harry's interest in political matters, occasionally shared her observations from Wisengamot sessions. "Dumbledore has built his power base carefully," she told Harry over tea one afternoon. "He holds 3 influential positions: Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, and Hogwarts Headmaster. It gives him unprecedented control over policy, international relations, and education. Is that why policies rarely change? Harry asked innocently. Augusta fixed him with a shrewd look. Precisely. Dumbledore favors stability above all, even when change is needed. She studied Harry thoughtfully. Your interest in these matters is unusual for your age. Harry smiled disarmingly. I'm just trying to understand the world I've entered. Everyone knows my name, has expectations of me, but no one bothered to teach me the rules. This appeal to fairness resonated with Augusta, who valued traditional education. She began including Harry in more substantive discussions, treating him not as a child but as a young heir in need of proper training. As summer drew to a close, Harry had accomplished more than he'd dared hope. He'd escaped the Dursleys, established legal precedent for future summers, built a strong alliance with the Longbottom family, and expanded his knowledge of wizarding politics. But most significantly, he and Slytherin had completed preparations for the ritual to remove the Horcrux from his scar. Using rare ingredients sourced through Augusta's connections, under the guise of advanced potion studies, they were ready to perform the complex magic during the first week back at Hogwarts. The night before returning to school, Harry met with Slytherin in his mindscape, a form of mental communication they'd perfected over the summer. Everything is prepared, Harry confirmed. Once we reach the chamber and retrieve the basilisk venom, we can proceed with the ritual. It will be painful, Slytherin warned. Extracting a soul fragment is not gentle magic. But the alternative, allowing Dumbledore's planned martyrdom, is unacceptable. Harry nodded resolutely. I'm ready. And afterward? Afterward, we begin Phase 2, Slytherin's spectral form smiled coldly. Identifying and destroying Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes while building your power base at Hogwarts. And Dumbledore? Harry asked. We continue observing and countering his moves. The chess master cannot win if his pieces refuse to play their assigned roles. As Platform 9 3/4 came into view the next morning, Harry felt a surge of anticipation. His first year had been about survival and information gathering. His second would be about taking action. The Hogwarts Express gleamed scarlet against the platform, steam billowing around families saying goodbyes. Augusta and Neville stood beside Harry, the elderly witch giving him a surprisingly warm farewell. Remember what we discussed about comportment, Harry, she said. An heir to an ancient house carries himself with dignity, regardless of circumstances. Yes, ma'am, Harry replied respectfully. Thank you for everything. As Harry boarded the train, he spotted familiar faces, Hermione waving excitedly, the Weasley family in their usual chaotic cluster, Draco arriving with his father's hand on his shoulder. Each represented different facets of the wizarding world he was preparing to change. This year, Slytherin's voice promised in his mind, we truly begin. Chapter 3, The Founder's Gambit. The Hogwarts Express rattled northward through the countryside as Harry settled into a compartment with Neville, Hermione joining them moments later with an enthusiastic hug for each boy. I've been reading ahead in this year's textbooks, she announced, pulling out Gilderoy Lockhart's Year with the Yeti. Our new defense professor must be brilliant to assign these. Harry exchanged a skeptical look with Neville. Have you actually read them carefully? They're full of inconsistencies. What? No, they're not, Hermione defended. Lockhart is a celebrated hero. Hero or fraud? Harry countered. The timing doesn't work. In Wandering with Werewolves, he claims to have saved a village in Romania on the same day he was supposedly in Tibet according to Travels with Trolls. Hermione frowned, flipping through both books. That can't be right. Check for yourself, Harry suggested mildly. Augusta Longbottom says the publishing house that prints his books has financial troubles and doesn't fact-check anymore. The door slid open as Draco appeared with Crabbe and Goyle flanking him. His eyes darted briefly to Hermione and Neville before addressing Harry. Potter, a word? Whatever you have to say works fine here, Harry replied, gesturing to the empty seat. Draco hesitated, then dismissed his bodyguards with a sharp nod. Once alone with the trio, his demeanor shifted subtly. Father came home furious after the last Board of Governors meeting, he said without preamble. Dumbledore pushed through Lockhart's appointment despite multiple objections. Father says it's a deliberate sabotage of proper defense education. Harry leaned forward, genuinely interested. Any idea why Dumbledore would want that? Father thinks it's to maintain his monopoly on combat expertise, Draco replied, lowering his voice. The better he looks by comparison. Or to prevent students from learning proper defense, Harry mused, catching Draco's eye meaningfully. Certain students, especially. Draco nodded slowly, understanding the implication. After a brief but civil exchange, he departed, leaving Hermione staring at Harry. Since when are you and Malfoy friendly? We're not friends, Harry clarified. We're housemates with aligned interests on specific issues. It's called politics, Hermione. I didn't realize you were so. Slytherin, she said, not entirely approvingly. Harry smiled. The hat put me there for a reason. As darkness fell outside the windows, Harry excused himself to change into his robes. In the corridor, he felt Slytherin's presence stir in his mind. We must act quickly with the Horcrux ritual, Slytherin cautioned. I sense something dark has entered the castle alongside the students. Lucius Malfoy's plot with the diary? Harry guessed, referring to intelligence they'd gathered through Dobby, the Malfoy house elf who'd made a botched attempt to save Harry over the summer. Likely. The signature feels familiar, like your scar, but older, more developed. Harry nodded imperceptibly. Their plans would need to accelerate. The welcome feast proceeded with predictable pageantry. Dumbledore introduced Gilderoy Lockhart, who rose with a flourishing bow that sent several female students into fits of giggles. Harry studied the headmaster's expression, noting the calculated twinkle that didn't quite reach his eyes. He's using Lockhart, Harry thought to Slytherin. But for what purpose? Control of the narrative, came the reply. A buffoon teaching defense ensures students learn approved magic only, through unofficial channels Dumbledore monitors. The next morning, Harry slipped away before breakfast, making his way to Myrtle's bathroom. After confirming it was empty, he opened the chamber entrance and descended. The massive space looked exactly as he'd left it in June, ancient, imposing, and humming with dark magic. Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four, he hissed. The statue's mouth opened, revealing the basilisk's lair. Harry closed his eyes as instructed. Great Serpent, I call you forth. Keep your deadly gaze shielded. A massive rustling sound echoed through the chamber as the basilisk emerged, its eyes closed as commanded. A speaker calls me, it hissed. After so long, you are not the last one. No, Harry confirmed. The one before me used you to kill. I offer a different purpose. He explained his need for venom, just enough for the Horcrux ritual without harming the Great Serpent. The basilisk, sentient but lonely after centuries of isolation, agreed readily, allowing Harry to collect venom from its fangs into a specially prepared vial. I will return, Harry promised. And bring you fresh prey. With the venom secured, Harry gathered the remaining ritual components from his trunk, phoenix tears purchased through a discreet apothecary Gornick had recommended, powdered silver, and essence of Dibney. The ritual would need to wait until midnight when the castle's ambient magic was at its most neutral. Classes began with herbology, where Professor Sprout introduced them to mandrakes. Harry partnered with Neville, whose natural talent with plants made the work easier. Later, in Transfiguration, Harry demonstrated perfect control when turning a beetle into a button, earning a reluctant, "Well done, Mr. Potter," from McGonagall. Defense against the dark arts, however, was exactly the farce Harry had predicted. Lockhart released Cornish pixies into the classroom, failed to control them, then fled, leaving Hermione to freeze them with Immobilis while Harry and Neville collected the frozen creatures. Still think he's brilliant? Harry asked Hermione as they exited the disaster zone. There must be some explanation, she insisted, though her confidence was clearly shaken. That night, after his dorm-mates fell asleep, Harry slipped out under his invisibility cloak. In the chamber's ritual chamber, he prepared the complex magic according to Slytherin's precise instructions. A silver basin inscribed with runes held the mixture of phoenix tears, dittany, and powdered silver. Basilisk venom waited in a separate vial. The pain will be severe, Slytherin warned as Harry removed his shirt and sat cross-legged within a circle of black candles. But it must be endured without magical painkillers, which would interfere with the soul extraction. Harry nodded grimly. I'm ready. The ritual began with Harry chanting in Parseltongue, activating the runic array around him. The candle flames turned emerald green as magic built in the air. Following Slytherin's guidance, Harry added 3 drops of basilisk venom to the silver basin, causing the mixture to hiss and emit silver vapor. Now, Slytherin instructed. Press the basin to your scar. Harry lifted the basin with trembling hands and pressed it against his forehead. Immediate, blinding agony erupted from his scar, pain beyond anything he'd experienced. It felt as if his very soul was being torn apart. A high, cold scream filled the chamber, not Harry's voice, but Voldemort's fragment being forcibly extracted. Black ichor oozed from the lightning scar, sizzling as it met the silvery potion. Harry bit down on a leather strap to prevent himself from screaming, knowing he must maintain concentration despite the pain. The agony peaked as a wraith-like form tore free from his forehead, smaller and less defined than the shade that had escaped Quirrell, but unmistakably a fragment of Voldemort. It writhed in the air above Harry, screeching in fury before the basilisk venom in the potion destroyed it completely. Harry collapsed backward, chest heaving. Blood and black fluid ran down his face, but the burning connection he'd felt to Voldemort since encountering Quirrell had vanished. His mind felt clearer, lighter, truly his own for the first time. It is done, Slytherin announced, his ghostly form more visible than usual in the ritual's aftermath. The soul fragment is destroyed. You are free of his direct influence, though the scar remains as a physical mark. After cleansing himself and the ritual space, Harry made his way back to the Slytherin dormitory on shaky legs. By morning, only a dull ache in his scar remained, a small price for the liberation he felt. Over breakfast, Harry studied his classmates with new clarity. Without Voldemort's fragment clouding his perceptions, he noticed details previously obscured, the way Dumbledore's gaze lingered calculatingly on certain students, how Professor Snape's bitterness seemed tinged with genuine remorse, and most importantly, a faint dark aura emanating from Ginny Weasley's bag. That's it, Harry realized. Lucius Malfoy's plot. The diary is already in play. He shared this observation with Slytherin during History of Magic, where Bin's droning provided perfect cover for mental communication. We must act quickly, Slytherin agreed. That diary contains a much larger soul fragment than the one we just removed, likely created earlier in Voldemort's life. It's already influencing the Weasley girl. They formulated a plan to intercept the diary, weighing options for approaching Ginny directly versus more subtle methods. The decision was made for them when, 2 days later, Harry discovered the first ominous message painted on a corridor wall: the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Mrs. Norris hung petrified beside the message. A puddle of water reflected the scene, and Harry immediately recognized the location, outside Myrtle's bathroom. Diaries a Horcrux, not just a cursed artifact, Harry thought urgently to Slytherin as students gathered around the grisly scene. It's actually opening the chamber and controlling the basilisk remotely. Impossible, Slytherin replied. Only a Parselmouth can command the basilisk. Unless Voldemort's diary can temporarily transfer that ability to its user, Harry suggested. We need to get that diary immediately. Opportunity came sooner than expected. During lunch the following day, Harry noticed Ginny Weasley looking pale and disoriented, frantically searching through her bag. He followed her at a distance as she rushed to Myrtle's bathroom, waited until she exited looking even more distressed, then slipped inside. She's looking for the diary, Harry whispered to Myrtle, who floated near her usual stall. Have you seen a small black book? "Oh, that," Myrtle said with a ghostly sniff. "The redhead girl threw it through me. Right through my stomach. It's in that toilet." Harry cautiously approached the stall, finding the sodden diary floating in the toilet bowl. Using a handkerchief to avoid direct contact, he retrieved it, immediately feeling dark magic pulsing from its pages. T.M. Riddle, Harry read from the faded name on the cover. Tom Marvolo Riddle. Voldemort's birth name, Slytherin confirmed. This is indeed a Horcrux, perhaps his first. We must destroy it immediately. Harry wrapped the diary carefully and headed straight for the chamber. In the ritual room, he placed it within a containment circle before opening it with the tip of his wand. Blank pages greeted him, but when a drop of ink fell onto a page, it vanished as if absorbed. Harry watched as words appeared in an elegant script. "Hello. Who might you be?" "Tom Marvolo Riddle," Harry wrote back. "I know who you are." The diary seemed to hesitate before responding. "Do you? How interesting. And who might you be?" "Harry Potter," he wrote truthfully. "The boy who survived your killing curse." The pages began flipping rapidly, the diary vibrating with rage. Before it could respond or attempt possession, Harry uncorked the basilisk venom and poured it directly onto the open pages. The diary screamed, an actual, audible scream that echoed through the chamber. Black ink gushed from its pages like blood, and it writhed as if alive. A ghostly figure began to emerge from its pages, a handsome teenage boy with rage contorting his features, before the venom destroyed the connection. The apparition shattered with a final shriek, leaving the diary smoking and punctured, its dark magic extinguished. "Two down," Harry said grimly. "How many more?" "I cannot say precisely," Slytherin admitted. "But given Voldemort's obsession with magical symbolism, I would guess 7, the most magically powerful number." The destruction of the diary had immediate consequences. With no one controlling the basilisk, the attack ceased. Hogwarts returned to normal operations, though rumors about the chamber and Slytherin's heir continued circulating. Harry decided to use these rumors strategically. During a study session with his growing interhouse group, now including Hermione, Neville, Susan Bones from Hufflepuff, and a reluctant Draco, he deliberately broached the topic. "The Chamber of Secrets is real," he said quietly, causing everyone to stop writing. "But the stories about Slytherin wanting to purge Muggleborns are propaganda." "That's not what the histories say," Hermione countered skeptically. "History is written by the victors," Harry replied. "Did you know Salazar Slytherin's own journals tell a different story? He feared Muggles who burned witches, not Muggleborns themselves." "And how would you know what his journals say?" Draco challenged, though his expression showed interest rather than hostility. Harry met his eyes steadily. "The Slytherin vault at Gringotts contains copies. As someone with a connection to the founder, I was granted limited access last summer." This was a calculated lie. Harry had no Gringotts access to Slytherin materials. But it established a plausible source for his knowledge while hinting at his Parseltongue abilities to those not already aware. "What else did these journals say?" Susan Bones asked, leaning forward. "That the chamber was built as a sanctuary for advanced magical research, not as housing for a monster. And that Slytherin valued magical talent regardless of birth. His quarrel was with admitting students whose families might expose the magical world to persecution." The information spread exactly as Harry intended. Within days, students were questioning the established narrative about Slytherin. Professor Binns found himself actually interrupted during History of Magic by students asking about historical accuracy. Even some professors seemed unsettled by the revisionist perspective gaining traction. Dumbledore watched these developments with increasing concern. Harry often caught the headmaster's gaze following him during meals, the trademark twinkle replaced by calculation. "He suspects you're behind the changing narrative," Slytherin observed. "But can prove nothing. Now we move to Phase 2, demonstrating power he cannot counter." This phase began during the dueling club Lockhart established in December. When Snape and Lockhart demonstrated a formal duel, resulting in Lockhart being spectacularly disarmed, student pairs were formed for practice. Harry was intentionally paired with Draco. As they faced each other on the platform, Draco smirked. "Scared, Potter?" "Not particularly," Harry replied with a slight smile. They both knew this was theater for the observers. At Lockhart's signal, Draco shouted, "Serpensortia." A large black snake erupted from his wand, landing between them and advancing toward Harry. The crowd gasped as the snake raised itself, preparing to strike. Harry waited until everyone could see the danger, then spoke clearly in Parseltongue. "Stop. Return to your caster." The snake immediately turned and slithered toward Draco, who paled dramatically. Before panic could erupt, Harry switched to English. "I've just told it not to attack anyone," he announced calmly. Contrary to rumor, Parseltongue is simply a magical language, not a dark art. The demonstration caused exactly the sensation Harry anticipated. Students whispered about his ability, but without the fear that had characterized the original timeline Slytherin had glimpsed in Harry's potential futures. By controlling the revelation rather than having it exposed chaotically, Harry transformed it from a frightening secret to an impressive magical talent. Professor Snape vanished the snake with a flick of his wand, his expression unreadable as he studied Harry. "A controlled demonstration of a rare magical ability, Potter. 10 points to Slytherin for educational value." This endorsement from the feared potions master further legitimized Harry's ability in students' eyes. Even Ron Weasley, who had been keeping his distance since Harry's sorting into Slytherin, approached him afterward. "That was bloody brilliant," Ron admitted grudgingly. "Is it true what you told Ginny about the chamber not being meant for killing Muggleborns?" "It's true," Harry confirmed. "The real story has been buried for centuries." With the diary destroyed and his Parseltongue ability public knowledge, Harry's plans accelerated. Using the basilisk, now under his direct control rather than riddles, he began a systematic search for other Horcruxes that might be hidden within Hogwarts. "Search the 7th floor," Harry instructed the Great Serpent during their midnight expeditions. "There's a hidden room there that responds to need, it might contain what we seek." The basilisk, moving through the castle's ancient pipes with Harry following under his invisibility cloak, discovered the room of requirement on their 3rd expedition. Inside, they found a vast cathedral-like space filled with hidden objects accumulated over centuries. "I sense dark magic," Slytherin warned as Harry navigated through towering piles of discarded items. "Similar to the diary and your scar." Following this magical signature, Harry located a tarnished tiara, Ravenclaw's lost diadem, corrupted into a Horcrux. The basilisk provided venom again, and another fragment of Voldemort's soul was destroyed in a similar spectacle of screaming ink and ephemeral apparitions. 3 down, Harry whispered. 4 remaining, by your estimation. As January melted into February, Harry's influence at Hogwarts grew beyond Slytherin House. His study group expanded to include students from all houses interested in his perspective on magical history and theory. Even some 7th years attended occasionally, drawn by Harry's seemingly innate understanding of magic's deeper principles. During one such session in an unused classroom, Blaise Zabini asked the question many had been wondering: "How do you know all this, Potter? This isn't in any textbook." Harry had prepared for this moment. "I've had a mentor," he said carefully. "Someone with unique historical knowledge who's guided my studies since before Hogwarts." "A private tutor?" Hermione asked, looking both impressed and slightly jealous. "Something like that," Harry hedged. "Someone with direct knowledge of Hogwarts' founding and original purpose." The implication hung in the air, too outlandish to be stated directly yet too intriguing to dismiss. Harry left his classmates speculating while he continued building their understanding of magic beyond Hogwarts' standardized curriculum. These activities didn't go unnoticed. In late February, Harry received a summons to the headmaster's office. The note arrived during breakfast, delivered by a solemn-faced Professor McGonagall. "Password is Chocolate Frog," she informed him. "He expects you immediately after classes." The confrontation comes earlier than anticipated, Slytherin noted as Harry walked toward the Gargoyle Guardian that afternoon. Remember our strategy, reveal nothing of our true plans while learning as much as possible about his. Harry ascended the spiral staircase, knocked on the heavy wooden door, and entered when Dumbledore's voice called, "Come in, Harry." The headmaster's office was exactly as Harry had imagined, circular, filled with silver instruments emitting puffs of smoke, portraits of former headmasters pretending to sleep while obviously eavesdropping, and Fawkes the Phoenix perched majestically beside the desk. "Ah, Harry," Dumbledore smiled benignly. "Thank you for coming." "Lemon drop?" "No, thank you, sir," Harry replied politely, taking the offered seat across from Dumbledore. "I've been hearing remarkable things about your extracurricular study groups," Dumbledore began, blue eyes twinkling. "Quite impressive for a second year to be teaching older students." "I'm not teaching, sir," Harry corrected mildly. "We're just discussing alternative perspectives on magical theory and history." "Alternative perspectives," Dumbledore repeated, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "Such as your rather unique interpretation of Salazar Slytherin's intentions for the Chamber of Secrets?" Harry met the headmaster's gaze steadily, careful to maintain basic occlumency shields as Slytherin had taught him. "History is written by the victors, headmaster. I'm simply encouraging critical thinking." "A noble pursuit," Dumbledore acknowledged. "Though I wonder about your sources for these alternative facts." "Historical records not commonly available at Hogwarts," Harry replied, deliberately vague. "And logical analysis of contradictions in the established narrative." Dumbledore leaned forward slightly. "Harry, I'm concerned these activities might be distracting you from your education, and perhaps giving you ideas beyond your years." "My grades are excellent, sir," Harry countered. "And knowledge isn't dangerous in itself, only how it's applied." "A wise observation," Dumbledore smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm curious, Harry, have you ever heard of a prophecy? Perhaps one concerning yourself and Lord Voldemort?" This direct approach surprised both Harry and Slytherin. They'd expected Dumbledore to be more circumspect. "A prophecy, sir?" Harry feigned confusion. "Like divination?" "Professor Trelawney doesn't seem very reliable." "Not all prophecies are equally valid," Dumbledore agreed. "But some, recorded in the Department of Mysteries, carry significant magical weight. One such prophecy concerns you directly." Harry allowed appropriate surprise to show on his face. "Me? What does it say?" Dumbledore studied him carefully. "It speaks of one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord, born as the seventh month dies to parents who thrice defied him." "That could be anyone born at the end of July whose parents fought Voldemort 3 times, Harry pointed out reasonably. "Indeed. There were 2 candidates originally," Dumbledore confirmed. "But Voldemort marked you as his equal when he gave you that scar, fulfilling another condition of the prophecy." "And the rest?" Harry prompted. Dumbledore hesitated. "It mentions that either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives." Harry allowed this information to settle, his expression thoughtful. "So either I kill Voldemort, or he kills me. No other options?" "Prophecies are often less straightforward than they appear," Dumbledore hedged. "The important thing is understanding your unique connection to Voldemort and the responsibility it entails." "Responsibility to do what, exactly?" Harry asked, injecting just enough teenage defiance into his tone. "To be prepared," Dumbledore replied vaguely. "To be willing to make difficult choices when the time comes." "Including sacrificing myself?" Harry asked bluntly. Dumbledore's momentary surprise confirmed Harry's suspicion. "What makes you ask that, my boy?" "Logic, sir. If neither can live while the other survives, and if we have some mysterious connection through my scar, the simplest interpretation is that both of us must die." The headmaster's silence spoke volumes. Finally, he sighed heavily. "Harry, these matters are far more complex than they appear. When the time is right, when I'm older." Harry interrupted. When I've been properly molded into the martyr you need? Dumbledore's expression hardened slightly. You speak as if I am manipulating you, Harry. I assure you, everything I've done has been for your protection and the greater good. Including leaving me with abusive relatives who locked me in a cupboard for 10 years. Harry challenged. Including setting up tests like the Philosopher's Stone incident last year. Tests. Dumbledore's surprise seemed genuine. I'm not sure what you mean. A series of obstacles perfectly calibrated for first years to overcome, Harry explained. A forbidden corridor announced at the welcome feast to ensure curious students would investigate. Hagrid accidentally mentioning the stone. It was all designed to test me, wasn't it? The headmaster's silence confirmed Harry's accusations. Finally, Dumbledore sighed. You are remarkably perceptive for your age, Harry. Perhaps too perceptive. I wonder, who has been guiding your thoughts in these directions? Maybe I'm just not the compliant tool you expected, Harry suggested, rising from his chair. Is there anything else, Headmaster? I have homework to complete. Dumbledore regarded him with a mixture of concern and calculation. You may go, Harry. But remember, my door is always open should you wish to discuss these matters further. As Harry descended the spiral staircase, Slytherin's voice came urgently. He'll be watching you more closely now. We must accelerate our plans. The confrontation with Dumbledore marked a turning point. Within days, Harry noticed increased surveillance, professors, coincidentally, appearing near his study groups, portraits reporting his movements, and even Hermione occasionally asking pointed questions that seemed designed to test his knowledge. Dumbledore's using your friends to gather intelligence, Slytherin warned after one particularly suspicious conversation with Hermione about magical theory. Not necessarily with their knowledge, subtle suggestions from authority figures can influence behavior. Harry nodded imperceptibly. Time for the next phase, then. Revealing you? Yes, Slytherin agreed. But selectively, to a carefully chosen audience. And we'll need a demonstration of power significant enough to establish credibility. They planned meticulously, selecting participants for the revelation based on their influence, openness to new information, and potential as allies. The list included Neville, Hermione, Draco, Theodore Nott, Susan Bones, Luna Lovegood, and surprisingly, Fred and George Weasley. The twins understand power dynamics better than most adults, Harry explained when Slytherin questioned their inclusion. And they've never fully bought into Dumbledore's grandfatherly facade. On a Saturday evening in early March, Harry invited the selected students to the second-floor bathroom under the pretense of showing them historical evidence supporting his claims about Slytherin. Once all had arrived, looking curious and slightly apprehensive, Harry sealed the door with an advanced locking charm that raised Hermione's eyebrows. That's an EWT level, she noted, impressed despite herself. What I'm about to show you goes beyond conventional curriculum, Harry replied seriously. I need your magical oaths not to reveal what you see without my permission. After some hesitation and questions, each student provided the requested oath. Harry then turned to the sink with the snake marking. Open, he hissed in Parseltongue. The entrance revealed itself, eliciting gasps from everyone except Draco, who had witnessed Harry's ability before. The Chamber of Secrets, Harry announced. Not as legend describes it, but as it truly is, Salazar Slytherin's personal sanctuary and research facility. He led them down the cleaned and illuminated passage he'd prepared earlier, bypassing the more disturbing aspects like animal bones and shed basilisk skin. The main chamber itself, however, remained impressively imposing with its serpent pillars and massive statue. I found this place during my first year, Harry explained, which was technically true. But my connection to it began much earlier. He moved to the center of the chamber, standing beneath the carved face of Salazar Slytherin, and raised his hands. Following their rehearsed plan, Slytherin channeled his spectral energy through Harry, manifesting as a translucent figure beside him, more substantial than a regular ghost but clearly not corporeal. Greetings, young magicals, Slytherin's apparition spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I am Salazar Slytherin, founder of Hogwarts and mentor to Harry Potter." The students' reactions ranged from Hermione's open-mouthed shock to Luna's unsurprised nod to the twins' identical expressions of delighted disbelief. Draco had gone deathly pale, while Neville seemed frozen in place. "Bloody hell, Fred, or possibly George," whispered. "This explains so much. I have guided Harry since his childhood," Slytherin continued, teaching him magical traditions and truths deliberately obscured by modern wizarding society. "The history you have learned is largely propaganda written by the victors of ancient conflicts." "That's impossible," Hermione finally managed. "Ghosts can't possess that level of awareness for 1,000 years. And they can't teach magic." "I am not merely a ghost, Miss Granger," Slytherin corrected. "I am a magical impression preserved through specific enchantments, with my complete knowledge and personality intact." To prove his point, Slytherin directed Harry in casting several spells unknown to modern wizarding Britain, ancient protection charms that manifested as shimmering golden shields, weather manipulation that created a localized rainfall over a small section of the chamber, and most impressively, wandless transfiguration of the stone floor into a series of lifelike serpent statues that moved like real creatures. "These magics were common knowledge in my time," Slytherin explained as the students watched in awe. "They have been deliberately suppressed or allowed to fade from wizarding education to maintain certain power structures." For the next hour, Slytherin answered questions, confirming some aspects of wizarding history while correcting others. He explained his true reasons for building the chamber, his actual views on Muggleborns, caution rather than hatred, and his bitter disagreement with Godric Gryffindor over magical education. Godric believed all magic should be taught openly without restriction, Slytherin explained. "I advocated for tiered access based on magical maturity and ethical development. Our disagreement was philosophical, not based on blood supremacy as later historians claimed." By the time the session concluded, the selected students were reeling with new perspectives. Harry had carefully observed each reaction, noting who seemed most receptive. Surprisingly, Draco Malfoy appeared deeply affected by the revelations about blood purity being a relatively modern concept rather than Slytherin's original position. "My father always said." Draco began, then stopped, visibly reconsidering lifelong assumptions. "Your ancestors weren't wrong to value magical heritage," Slytherin told him kindly. "But the modern interpretation has become distorted, serving political agendas rather than magical preservation." As the group made their way back to the castle proper, Hermione hung back to walk beside Harry. "This changes everything," she whispered. "Why reveal it now?" "Because Dumbledore is preparing for a final conflict with Voldemort," Harry replied quietly. "And his plans include my sacrifice as a necessary casualty. I need allies who understand what we're really fighting for, not light versus dark, but freedom versus control." The revelation had its intended effect. Within days, the selected students began subtly influencing their peers, challenging established narratives about magical history and theory. The twins created magical pamphlets that circulated anonymously through the school, detailing lost magics of the Founders' era. Hermione approached her research with new critical perspective, questioning textbook assertions she previously accepted without challenge. Most significantly, Susan Bones wrote to her Aunt Amelia, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, with carefully worded questions about historical accuracy in educational materials. This planted seeds that would later bloom into official scrutiny of Hogwarts curriculum. Dumbledore, naturally, noticed these developments. After a particularly pointed defense against the dark arts class where students openly questioned Lockhart's qualifications, the headmaster called an unusual full staff meeting. Harry learned of its contents through a monitoring charm he'd placed in the staff room, a variation of extendable ears that the twins would later commercialize. "There appears to be an organized effort to undermine established curriculum and authority structures," Dumbledore informed the gathered professors. "Centered primarily around Mr. Potter and his study groups. The boy is merely encouraging critical thinking," McGonagall countered, surprisingly. "Something we should applaud, not suppress." Minerva, there is a difference between healthy skepticism and deliberate destabilization, Dumbledore replied gravely. Mr. Potter has been sharing information about magical theory that goes well beyond standard curriculum, some of it potentially dangerous. Snape's silky voice interjected. Potter has always demonstrated a disregard for rules and boundaries. Like his father. His academic performance is exemplary, Flitwick piped up. And the questions his group raises about magical theory are genuinely insightful. I've been researching some myself. The meeting ended inconclusively, but it confirmed Harry's suspicion that Dumbledore was losing control of the narrative. The foundation was laid for the final phase of their plan, direct confrontation and public exposure of Dumbledore's manipulations. This opportunity came sooner than expected. In early April, Lucius Malfoy arrived at Hogwarts with the Board of Governors, intent on removing Dumbledore over the Chamber of Secrets incident, unaware that Harry had already resolved it by destroying the diary. Harry, forewarned by Draco, positioned himself to intercept Lucius before the official meeting. He approached the elder Malfoy in the entrance hall, offering a respectful greeting that caught the aristocrat off guard. "Mr. Potter," Lucius acknowledged coldly. "I'm afraid I have no time for conversation. Official business awaits." "About the Chamber of Secrets?" Harry asked innocently. "I believe I can provide valuable information for your meeting." "Information about a certain diary." Lucius froze, his hand tightening on his snake-headed cane. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The black diary that possessed Ginny Weasley," Harry continued calmly. T.M. Riddle's diary. "The one you slipped into her cauldron at Flourish and Blotts last summer." Color drained from Lucius's face. "These are serious accusations, boy," he hissed, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Not accusations, facts," Harry corrected. "Facts I'm prepared to share with the board and the DMLE unless we reach an understanding." "What kind of understanding?" Lucius asked cautiously. "I need the board's support for educational reforms," Harry explained. "And your political influence for certain legislative initiatives. In exchange, the diary incident remains between us." Lucius studied Harry with new calculation in his eyes. "You're remarkably Slytherin for Potter's son." "The hat put me there for a reason," Harry replied with a slight smile. "Do we have an agreement?" This negotiation, conducted in whispers in an alcove off the entrance hall, marked a crucial power shift. Lucius, recognizing both threat and opportunity, modified his approach to the board meeting. Instead of calling for Dumbledore's removal, he proposed a committee to evaluate and update the Hogwarts curriculum, with Harry as a student consultant. Dumbledore, caught off guard by this unexpected move, found himself outmaneuvered politically. The board approved the committee, and within days, formal reviews of each subject were underway. History of magic was the first target, with Binns' incompetence finally addressed after centuries of boring generations into comas. Defense against the dark arts followed, with Lockhart subjected to a practical examination that exposed his fraudulence so thoroughly he fled the castle overnight. Dumbledore was forced to bring in a ministry examiner to complete the year's instruction. While these changes unfolded publicly, Harry continued his clandestine work with Slytherin. Together they identified the locations of 2 more Horcruxes through careful magical tracing, Hufflepuff's cup in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts and Slytherin's locket in a dilapidated house in London. Retrieving these items required complex planning and the assistance of their growing network of allies. The cup was acquired through a legal maneuver. Harry, as the victim of Bellatrix Lestrange's master Voldemort, filed a reparation claim that allowed a Gringotts audit of the Lestrange vault. During this audit, the cup was identified as a stolen Hufflepuff artifact and transferred to Harry's custody as the school's representative. The locket proved more challenging, hidden in the ancestral home of the Black family under layers of dark enchantments. Here, an unexpected ally emerged, Dobby the house elf, whom Harry had freed from the Malfoys through a clever trick involving a sock and Lucius's diary planting scheme. Dobby, with his unique elven magic, bypassed wards that would have stopped human wizards. By late May, 5 Horcruxes had been destroyed: the diary, the diadem, Harry's scar, Hufflepuff's cup, and Slytherin's locket. According to Slytherin's calculations, 2 remained, likely Voldemort's snake Nagini and one other unidentified item. The final confrontation approaches, Slytherin warned as they destroyed the locket in another venom-infused ritual. Dumbledore will realize what we've been doing and make his move to regain control. This prediction proved accurate. 3 days later, Harry received another summons to the headmaster's office. This time, however, Slytherin advised a different approach. Bring your chosen allies, the founder suggested. This will be our opportunity to expose his manipulations publicly. Harry sent word through their communication network, enchanted galleons inspired by Hermione's organizational thinking. When he arrived at Dumbledore's office that evening, he was accompanied by Neville, Hermione, the Weasley twins, Susan Bones, and Draco Malfoy. I don't recall inviting an entourage, Harry, Dumbledore noted mildly as they filed in, though his eyes had lost their twinkle entirely. My advocates, Harry explained calmly. As is my right as an heir of an ancient house when summoned for potential disciplinary matters. Dumbledore raised his eyebrows. This is not a disciplinary meeting, merely a continuation of our previous conversation. About the prophecy? Harry asked directly, causing Dumbledore to glance sharply at the other students. They're aware of it, Headmaster. I've informed them of my role as your sacrificial lamb. That is a grave mischaracterization, Dumbledore replied, his grandfatherly facade slipping slightly. I had hoped we could discuss these matters privately, but since you've chosen this approach. He sighed heavily. What is it you want, Harry? Truth, Harry stated simply. Full disclosure about your plans for me, for Voldemort, and for Wizarding Britain. No more manipulation, no more, when you're older, no more half-truths. Dumbledore studied each face carefully before responding. Some information is dangerous in the wrong hands. Some burdens too heavy for young shoulders. Like the burden of growing up unloved in a cupboard. Harry challenged. Or facing Voldemort multiple times without proper training. Those burdens seemed appropriate for my young shoulders. The accusation hung in the air, unanswerable. Dumbledore removed his glasses, suddenly looking every year of his considerable age. Everything I've done, he said quietly, has been to prepare the wizarding world for Voldemort's eventual defeat. Sacrifices were necessary, including, yes, aspects of your childhood. And my life? Harry pressed. Was that a necessary sacrifice too? Dumbledore didn't answer directly. The prophecy states, I know what it states, Harry interrupted. But prophecies are fulfilled through choices, not predestination. You chose to interpret it as requiring my death because of the Horcrux in my scar. Dumbledore's shock was visible. You know about. How could you possibly? I've had a different teacher, Harry replied, then nodded to an empty space beside him. On cue, Slytherin manifested his spectral form, more solid and imposing than ever before. Albus Dumbledore, the founder's ghost intoned. You have twisted my school and legacy for your own purposes long enough. Chaos erupted as the portraits shouted in alarm, Fawkes trilled a high note of surprise, and Dumbledore himself rose from his chair, wand instinctively half-raised before he controlled himself. Impossible, the headmaster whispered. Salazar Slytherin died a millennium ago. Yet here I stand, Slytherin replied. Or rather, here my essence remains, preserved through magic you've deliberately suppressed from wizarding knowledge. For the next hour, an extraordinary confrontation unfolded. Slytherin systematically dismantled Dumbledore's carefully constructed narrative, revealing his deliberate marginalization of Slytherin House, his political maneuvering to maintain control over magical education, and most damningly, his complete plan for Harry's role in Voldemort's defeat. You knew from the beginning he carried a Horcrux, Slytherin accused. You placed him with abusive muggles to ensure he'd be malleable, grateful for any kindness, willing to sacrifice himself when the time came. You orchestrated yearly tests to strengthen his saving people tendency. All to create the perfect sacrificial weapon. It was necessary, Dumbledore defended, though his voice lacked conviction. The prophecy has already been fulfilled differently, Harry interrupted. The Horcrux in my scar has been destroyed, along with 4 others. Voldemort is nearly mortal again, and none of it required my death. Dumbledore seemed genuinely stunned. You've been hunting Horcruxes? Without training? Without protection? I had training and protection you never provided, Harry countered. While you were setting up character tests, Salazar was teaching me actual magic and history. The confrontation reached its climax when Harry revealed his most damning evidence, memories extracted and preserved showing Dumbledore's explicit planning for Harry's eventual sacrifice. These memories, collected from various sources including house elves who had overheard critical conversations, painted a devastating picture of calculation rather than care. I trusted you, Hermione whispered, tears streaming down her face as the memories played out. We all did. The intentions were noble, Dumbledore insisted, though he seemed to have aged decades during the conversation. The greater good sometimes requires, the greater good, Slytherin interrupted coldly. The justification of tyrants throughout history. Who appointed you arbiter of whose lives are expendable, Dumbledore? The final blow came from an unexpected source. Fawkes, who had been watching the proceedings with unusual intensity, suddenly flew from his perch to land on Harry's shoulder, trilling a song that filled the room with unmistakable meaning. The Phoenix had chosen sides. Dumbledore stared at his longtime companion in genuine shock. Fawkes. The Phoenix merely fixed him with a reproachful gaze before nuzzling against Harry's cheek. Even your familiar recognizes the truth, Slytherin observed quietly. Your era is ending, Albus Dumbledore. The question is whether you'll end it with dignity or with continued denial. In that moment, something in Dumbledore seemed to break. The manipulative chess master, the political powerhouse, the revered leader, all facades crumbled, leaving only a very old, very tired wizard who had lost his way decades earlier. What would you have me do? He asked simply. Step aside, Harry replied without malice. Resign your political positions. Allow Hogwarts to be reformed without your interference. Help us destroy the remaining Horcruxes, if you truly wish to defeat Voldemort. The negotiations that followed lasted well into the night. By dawn, an unprecedented agreement had been reached. Dumbledore would announce his retirement from the Wisengamot and International Confederation, citing age and desire to focus on educational matters. He would remain as headmaster for one transitional year with reduced powers, working alongside a reformed board of governors to implement curriculum changes. Most importantly, he would share all his knowledge about Voldemort, including the suspected locations of remaining Horcruxes and any intelligence about Death Eater activities. This is not how I imagined the prophecy would be fulfilled, Dumbledore admitted as their meeting concluded. But perhaps your way offers hope without the cost I believed inevitable. Prophecies are fulfilled by choices, Slytherin reminded him. You chose a path of control and sacrifice. Harry chose knowledge and alliance. Both paths could fulfill the same words, but with vastly different outcomes. The weeks that followed transformed Hogwarts and, gradually, Wizarding Britain itself. Dumbledore's public announcement of his political retirement sent shockwaves through magical society. The carefully worded statement about making way for new perspectives and focusing on educational reform maintained his dignity while creating space for actual change. Within Hogwarts, the Curriculum Review Committee gained unprecedented authority. History of Magic saw immediate reform with Binns finally retiring to haunt the library instead. Defense against the dark arts was completely restructured for the coming year, breaking Voldemort's curse through a technical reclassification as practical magical defense. Most significantly, ancient magics long suppressed began returning to the curriculum. Slytherin, working through Harry and the committee, reintroduced foundational magical theory that explained why spells worked rather than just how to cast them. This deeper understanding enhanced students' abilities across all subjects. By the end of term, the final Horcruxes had been identified through combined intelligence from Dumbledore and Slytherin. Nagini remained with Voldemort's wraith in Albania, while the last Horcrux was confirmed to be the Gaunt family ring hidden in their abandoned shack. A carefully planned expedition by Dumbledore, Harry, and several trusted adults retrieved and destroyed the ring, though not without cost. Dumbledore's hand was withered by a curse he triggered despite warnings, reinforcing the lesson that even the greatest wizards could fall prey to arrogance. On the Hogwarts Express returning to London, Harry sat with his core allies, planning for the summer ahead. The destruction of nearly all Horcruxes had left Voldemort vulnerable, but the final confrontation still loomed. Albania expedition leaves July 15, Fred, or possibly George, confirmed, consulting a charmed notebook. Bill's got the curse-breaking covered, Charlie's handling magical creature control if needed. Aunt Amelia's approved Auror support under the guise of an international dark artifact recovery, Susan added. Very hush-hush, officially deniable. Hermione flipped through her meticulously organized notes. The binding ritual is prepared for when we locate the Wraith. It won't destroy him completely without the final Horcrux, but it will prevent him possessing anyone else. Harry nodded, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the strength of true alliance. Once Nagini is destroyed and the Wraith contained, we'll have time to prepare properly for whatever comes next. As the train pulled into King's Cross, Harry felt Slytherin's presence stir in his mind. You've accomplished more in 2 years than most wizards do in lifetimes, the founder observed. How does it feel? Unfinished, Harry replied honestly. We've prevented the worst futures you showed me, but there's still so much to change, to build. That, Slytherin replied with spectral satisfaction, is precisely why you're my heir in spirit, if not fully in blood. The work of true reformation is never complete. Augusta Longbottom waited on the platform alongside Andromeda Tonks, Harry's newly appointed magical guardian, following a careful legal maneuver that had transferred authority from Dumbledore without public controversy. Between them stood Neville, looking more confident than Harry had ever seen him. Ready for summer training at the manor? Neville asked as Harry approached. Gran's invited everyone for the defensive magic workshop next week. Harry grinned. Wouldn't miss it. As Harry left the platform with his new magical family, he caught sight of Dumbledore watching from a distance, their eyes meeting briefly. The old wizard nodded once, acknowledgement, perhaps respect, possibly even gratitude for the chance to correct his course before the end. Chess pieces becoming players, Slytherin observed. That's what truly frightened him, you know, not that his plans would fail, but that those he considered pawns would develop agency. Harry nodded imperceptibly as he turned away. The wizarding world was changing, not through dramatic revolution but through persistent, deliberate reform. The Chamber's secrets had become tools for reconstruction rather than weapons of destruction. Slytherin's true legacy was being restored, not as the dark founder of prejudice, but as an advocate for magical knowledge, preservation, and advancement. And Harry himself had transformed from an unwitting sacrifice to the architect of his own destiny, guided by a 1,000-year-old mentor who had awakened to find a worthy heir in an abused 5-year-old boy. We still have work to do, Harry thought as he stepped into the sunlight beyond the station. Yes, Slytherin agreed, his spectral presence warm with pride. We always will. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Great Hall of Hogwarts buzzed with excited conversation as 7th years gathered for their graduation ceremony. Enchanted butterflies fluttered near the ceiling, which showed a perfect summer sky despite the light rain falling outside. Harry Potter, head boy badge gleaming on his formal robes, stood chatting with representatives from all 4 houses, Hermione from Gryffindor, Susan from Hufflepuff, Terry Boot from Ravenclaw, and Blaise Zabini from his own Slytherin. The house divisions remained, but they had evolved from rivals to specialized academic families, each with their own strengths acknowledged and celebrated. Hard to believe it's over, Hermione said, adjusting her valedictorian sash. 7 years gone just like that. Just the beginning, Granger, Blaise corrected with his characteristic smooth confidence. Ministry internships start next week for half of us, international apprenticeships for the rest. Harry smiled as his friends debated post-graduation plans. So much had changed since that confrontation in Dumbledore's office 5 years ago. The Albania expedition had succeeded in destroying Nagini and binding Voldemort's wraith in an enchanted prison deep within the Department of Mysteries. Without followers or Horcruxes, the once-feared Dark Lord was reduced to a cautionary exhibit, studied by unspeakables and occasionally visited by victims seeking closure. Dumbledore had honored his agreement, stepping back from politics while helping reform Hogwarts. The strain of relinquishing control had aged him rapidly, but also seemed to free him from some internal burden. He had retired fully 2 years ago, moving to a cottage in Godric's Hollow where he wrote his memoirs and occasionally entertained former students seeking wisdom rather than direction. McGonagall now served as headmistress, with Flitwick as deputy. The curriculum had expanded dramatically, incorporating both ancient magical practices and modern magical theory. Most significantly, the artificial divide between light and dark magic had been replaced with comprehensive ethical frameworks focusing on intent, consent, and consequence rather than arbitrary classification. "There you are, Potter," came Draco's voice as he approached with his parents. Lucius and Narcissa Malfoy had undergone their own transformation, not to the light side as simplistic narratives might suggest, but toward a more nuanced political position focused on magical preservation without blood supremacy. "Minister Malfoy," Harry greeted Lucius with a respectful nod. The elder Malfoy had ascended to the position 2 years earlier on a platform of magical innovation and international cooperation. "Still refusing to call me Lucius," the minister observed with a slight smirk. "Some things never change." Narcissa stepped forward to straighten Harry's already immaculate collar. "The Foundation Board meeting is Tuesday. We need your final approval on the scholarship selections." The Potterblack Educational Foundation, jointly managed by Harry and the Malfoys, had become the largest private funding source for magical education in Britain. It provided opportunities for students regardless of blood status or financial means, while also supporting research into declining magical birth rates, a problem that had united purebloods and progressives in common cause. As the ceremony began, Harry took his place at the podium as head boy. Looking out over the assembled students, families, and dignitaries, he felt Slytherin's presence warm in his mind. "They're ready," the founder observed. "Not just this class, but Wizarding Britain itself. Ready for the next phase." Harry nodded imperceptibly. Their work was far from complete, but the foundation was solid. Magical Britain was evolving not through violence or revolution, but through education, reform, and the steady pressure of new generations questioning old assumptions. As Harry began his address, a ghostly figure materialized briefly beside him, visible only to those who knew to look. Salazar Slytherin, no longer bitter or vengeful, watched his heir guide the magical world toward a future neither of them could have imagined alone. The Chamber's awakening had changed everything, not through terror as legend predicted, but through the oldest magic of all, knowledge freely shared between an isolated child and a misunderstood founder, bridging 1,000 years to create something new and wonderful from the shadows of the past. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.